A businessman devastated by the loss of his wife leaves the business world and isolates himself with his sick daughter in a silent mansion. But when a new housemaid begins to earn the girl's trust with small gestures of affection, something dark starts to surface beneath the household routine. Everyone thought the little girl had only 3 months to live, but what the maid discovers changes everything. Chapter 1. The Silent Mansion. The vast windows of the Carter mansion overlooked the pristine shores of Cape Cod, but William Carter noticed none of the beauty. His gaze remained fixed on a framed photograph, his wife Catherine's smile frozen in time, a moment from before their lives unraveled. The mid-October wind howled outside, matching the emptiness that had consumed their once vibrant home. At 42, William had achieved everything he'd ever wanted, a revolutionary tech company that provided cybersecurity to half the Fortune 500, a stunning modernist home that architectural magazines begged to feature, and a family that had once been his entire world. Now 6 months after Catherine's sudden car accident, only his 7-year-old daughter Lily remained, and she was slipping away too. Mr. Carter. The nurse's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Rebecca Collins had been with them since the diagnosis 3 months ago. Lily's finished her treatment for today. Dr. Blackwood increased the dosage. She'll need complete rest. William nodded, his jaw tightening. Has she eaten anything? Very little. We're monitoring her nutrient levels. The nurse's clinical tone made William's heart ache. He remembered when Lily would race through the house, her laughter filling every room. Now she barely spoke, barely looked at anyone, her small body weakened by aggressive treatments that seemed to drain the life from her rather than save it. I'd like to see her. The nurse hesitated. Dr. Blackwood recommends minimal stimulation after treatments. Perhaps tomorrow morning. William squared his shoulders. I'm not asking, Ms. Collins. She's my daughter. Rebecca's smile tightened, but she stepped aside. Of course, just keep it brief, please. Lily's room was the largest in the East Wing, decorated with professional care. Soft pink walls, a hand-painted mural of a fairy garden, shelves filled with untouched toys and books. William had spared no expense trying to create a sanctuary, but the medical equipment beside her bed shattered the illusion. His daughter lay still, her small frame swallowed by the plush comforter, wisps of blonde hair barely visible against the pillow. The chemotherapy had taken most of her golden curls, leaving her looking fragile and exposed. Her eyes opened as he approached, once bright blue like her mother's, now distant and glazed. "Hey, Princess," William whispered, settling carefully on the edge of her bed. "How are you feeling?" Lily turned her head slightly toward the window, avoiding his gaze. Her delicate fingers clutched a sketchbook, her only interest these days. Inside were page after page of dark, haunting landscapes, empty playgrounds, stormy oceans, skeletal trees under cloudy skies. Her therapist called them externalized expressions of internal pain, but William saw them as silent cries he couldn't answer. "I hired a new housekeeper today," he said, attempting conversation. "Mrs. Henderson needed to retire to care for her husband. The new lady seems very nice. Her name is Sarah." Lily made no response. William reached out to touch her hair but stopped when she flinched. This had been happening more frequently, his daughter recoiling from human contact, especially his. The doctor said it was normal for children undergoing intensive treatment to withdraw, but something deeper gnawed at William. "I brought you something." He placed a small box beside her. "It's a music box from France. It plays Claire de Lune, your mom's favorite." At the mention of Catherine, Lily's eyes filled with tears. William fought the urge to gather her in his arms, knowing she would only pull away. "I miss her too." "Lily," he whispered. After a few more minutes of one-sided conversation, William reluctantly left the room. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, exhaustion washing over him. He'd stepped away from his company, leaving his COO in charge while he focused entirely on Lily's treatment. His days revolved around consultations with Dr. Richard Blackwood, the renowned pediatric oncologist, whose experimental approach offered hope when standard treatments failed. "Mr. Carter." William looked up to see Rebecca approaching with a clipboard. "Dr. Blackwood is requesting permission for an additional treatment course. It's showing promising results in similar cases." William took the clipboard, scanning the complex medical terminology. "Side effects?" "Fatigue, Possible cognitive suppression, temporary of course, and some mild discomfort. But the benefits far outweigh the risks. Her tone was practiced, confident. William hesitated. 6 months ago he would have questioned everything, demanded second opinions, researched every compound. That was how he built his business. Meticulous attention to detail, trust but verify. But grief and fear had worn him down. Dr. Blackwood had impeccable credentials, a waiting list months long, and had taken Lily's case as a personal favor after Catherine's passing. If Dr. Blackwood recommends it, then yes, William signed the form. Whatever it takes. Rebecca nodded and turned to leave. The new housekeeper has arrived. Shall I send her to your study? William had almost forgotten. Yes, thank you. In his study, William absently reviewed the woman's resume. Sarah Mitchell, 34, experienced in household management and childcare, excellent references from previous employers. Her interview had been brief. Something in her quiet dignity had resonated with him. Perhaps her presence would bring some normality back to their fractured home. A soft knock at the door announced her arrival. Sarah Mitchell stood in the doorway, her posture straight but not stiff. She was neither tall nor short, with chestnut hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her face was pleasant rather than beautiful, with kind eyes that held a shadow of something William recognized all too well: grief. Mr. Carter, thank you for this opportunity, she said, her voice steady but warm. Please have a seat. Ms. Mitchell, William gestured to the chair opposite his desk. I should explain our situation more thoroughly than I did during the interview. Sarah settled in the chair, folding her hands in her lap. I understand your daughter is ill. Yes, Lily was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia 3 months ago. She's currently receiving specialized treatment under Dr. Richard Blackwood. The oncologist, Sarah nodded. I've read about his work. William raised an eyebrow. You follow medical research? The flicker of something pain crossed Sarah's face. I worked briefly as a hospital administrator before switching to domestic service. I find medical advances fascinating. She paused. May I ask about Lily's daily routine? To better accommodate her needs, William explained the rigid schedule of medications, treatments, and rest periods. Nurse Collins manages all medical aspects. Your responsibilities will focus on maintaining the household, preparing appropriate meals when requested, and, he hesitated, perhaps providing some companionship for Lily, though she's withdrawn lately. Children process trauma differently, Sarah said quietly. Sometimes silence is their only defense. William studied her. How sound experienced? I've worked with several families during difficult times, she answered, offering no further explanation. What does Lily enjoy? Before she became ill? The question caught William off guard. What did Lily enjoy? Had he forgotten so quickly? She loved ballet, he said finally. And drawing. She would spend hours with her sketch pads. She collected music boxes. Her mother started the collection when Lily was 3. His voice caught on the mention of Catherine. Sarah didn't push for more. Instead, she asked practical questions about household operations, staff schedules, dietary restrictions. Her quiet efficiency was reassuring. When would you like me to start? She asked as their conversation concluded. Tomorrow, if possible. Mrs. Henderson will be here to show you the routines for 1 week before she leaves. Sarah rose gracefully. I'll be here at 7 then. Thank you again, Mr. Carter. As she turned to leave, William found himself saying, She doesn't speak much anymore, Lily. The doctors say it's normal given her condition, but he didn't know why he was telling this stranger something so personal. Sarah paused at the doorway. Sometimes, she said carefully, children don't need words to be understood. They need patience and presence. I'll do my best to provide both. After she left, William remained in his study late into the evening, reviewing medical articles about Lily's condition and Dr. Blackwood's innovative protocols. The treatments were aggressive, experimental, but Blackwood's success rates were unmatched. When standard approaches had failed, the doctor had promised results where others offered only sympathetic platitudes. I'll save your daughter, Mr. Carter, he had promised with unwavering confidence. But you must trust me completely. Any deviation from my protocols could jeopardize everything. William had given that trust wholeheartedly. What choice did he have? After losing Catherine so suddenly, the thought of losing Lily too was unimaginable. He would pay any price, sign any consent form if it meant keeping his daughter alive. Outside, the wind intensified, sending tree branches scraping against the windows. The sprawling mansion creaked and settled around him, achingly empty despite the staff. In the east wing, his daughter lay alone, trapped in silence by something William couldn't understand. In the west wing, Catherine's studio remained untouched, the door closed on her unfinished paintings and lingering perfume. William closed his laptop and rubbed his tired eyes. Tomorrow, Sarah Mitchell would join their broken household. He told himself it was just a staffing change, nothing significant. He couldn't know that her arrival would crack the foundation of everything he believed about his daughter's illness. The doctor he trusted, and the truth hiding in plain sight within the silent walls of their beautiful prison by the sea. Chapter 2. The New Caretaker. Sarah Mitchell arrived at the Carter mansion precisely at 7 the next morning, her modest sedan looking out of place among the manicured grounds and architectural splendor. The ocean breeze carried salt and the promise of rain as she approached the imposing front entrance. For a moment she hesitated, her hand touching the small locket hidden beneath her blouse. Inside, a tiny lock of brown hair, all she had left of her son. 3 months had passed since the complications that took both her child and her marriage. The pain remained fresh, a constant companion she had learned to carry silently. Perhaps that was why she had accepted this position so quickly. The isolation of grief had become suffocating. Mrs. Henderson, a stout woman in her 60s with silver hair and efficiency in every movement, answered the door. "Right on time. Good. Follow me and I'll show you everything you need to know." The morning passed in a whirlwind of information: security systems, dietary restrictions, cleaning protocols, staff schedules. The house operated with clinical precision, more hospital than home. "The East Wing is Miss Lily's domain," Mrs. Henderson explained as they walked the long hallway. "Nurse Collins stays in the adjoining room. You'll have minimal interaction with the medical staff. They prefer it that way." "What about Mr. Carter's schedule?" Sarah asked, noting how the older woman's expression tightened at the mention of the nurse. "Unpredictable. He works from home now, mostly in his study. Takes his meals alone most days." Mrs. Henderson lowered her voice. "It wasn't always like this. Before Mrs. Carter's accident and Miss Lily's diagnosis, this house had life in it." They passed a closed door and Mrs. Henderson hesitated. That was Mrs. Carter's studio. No one goes in there. By noon, Sarah's head was swimming with information. As they prepared lunch in the massive kitchen, she asked, "Will I be taking meals to Lily?" "Nurse Collins handles that," Mrs. Henderson said, efficiently slicing vegetables, "though most come back untouched. Poor child barely eats. May I meet her? Lily, I mean." The older woman considered. "Normally I'd say wait for Mr. Carter's permission, but—" She glanced at the clock. "Nurse Collins takes her break at 1. We could bring fresh linens to the room then." At the appointed time, Sarah followed Mrs. Henderson to Lily's suite, arms filled with freshly laundered sheets. The room was beautiful but sterile, more showroom than child's sanctuary despite the expensive toys and decorations. By the window sat a small figure, so still she might have been part of the decor. "Miss Lily," Mrs. Henderson said gently, "I've brought our new housekeeper, Ms. Mitchell. She'll be taking care of the house now that I'm leaving." The child didn't turn from the window. Sunlight illuminated her profile, highlighting the hollowness of her cheeks and the delicate curve of her scalp where hair was just beginning to return in pale wisps. "Hello, Lily," Sarah said, setting down the linens. "I'm Sarah." No response. Not even a flicker of acknowledgement. Mrs. Henderson sighed. "Let's change these sheets quickly before Nurse Collins returns." As they worked, Sarah observed the room more carefully. The bookshelves held pristine, untouched volumes. The toys looked arranged, rather than played with. On the nightstand sat a row of medication bottles, their labels bearing official-looking warnings. But what caught her attention was the sketchbook lying open on the bed, a drawing of a playground surrounded by tall, menacing shadows. "She draws all the time," Mrs. Henderson whispered. "It's all she does, really." Sarah's heart tightened. She remembered the grief counselor's words after Daniel. Children process trauma through art when words fail them. Before leaving, Sarah paused by Lily's chair. She didn't attempt conversation again, but simply placed a small wildflower she'd picked from the garden path on the windowsill beside the girl. "I thought this might bring some color to your view," she said softly, then followed Mrs. Henderson out. In the hallway, they nearly collided with Nurse Collins. The woman was perhaps 30, with sharp features and a perpetually rushed demeanor. "Who authorized you to enter Lily's room?" she demanded, her voice tight with controlled anger. "I did," Mrs. Henderson replied evenly. "Fresh linens. Ms. Mitchell is learning the routines. In the future, coordinate with me. Lily's treatment requires minimal disruption." The nurse brushed past them into the room, closing the door firmly. Mrs. Henderson rolled her eyes once they were out of earshot. "Power trips all day long. Between her and that doctor, it's a wonder anyone gets to see the child at all." The rest of Sarah's first day passed uneventfully. She met the groundskeeper, the part-time chef, and briefly encountered Mr. Carter as he emerged from his study for coffee. He acknowledged her with a distracted nod before returning to his work. That evening, after Mrs. Henderson left, Sarah found herself alone in the kitchen. On impulse, she baked a batch of simple sugar cookies, Daniel's favorite. The familiar motions were therapeutic, and the sweet scent filled the sterile kitchen with warmth. When they were cooled, she selected the best one and placed it on a small plate with a folded napkin. It was past Lily's scheduled bedtime, but Sarah felt drawn to check on the child. The east wing was quiet as she approached, light spilling from beneath Lily's door. She knocked softly. When no one answered, she gently pushed the door open. "Lily, I brought you—" The scene froze her in place. Lily lay in bed, face contorted in silent agony, as Nurse Collins administered an injection into her thin arm. The child's eyes met Sarah's, wide, pleading, terrified. "This area is restricted during treatments," Collins snapped, shielding the syringe from view. "Wait outside." Sarah retreated, heart pounding. Something in Lily's expression had triggered deep maternal instincts. That wasn't just the pain of a medical procedure. It was fear, raw and desperate. When the nurse emerged minutes later, Sarah stepped forward. "Is she all right?" She seemed to be in pain. "The medications can cause discomfort," Collins replied dismissively, securing a small case. "It's necessary for her recovery." "What kind of medication requires nighttime injections?" Collins' expression hardened. "Are you questioning Dr. Blackwood's treatment plan, Ms. Mitchell?" "No, Then I suggest you stick to housekeeping and leave medical matters to professionals." With that, she strode away. Sarah waited until Collins disappeared down the hall before re-entering Lily's room. The child lay motionless, eyes closed, breathing shallow. The cookie forgotten, Sarah approached the bed and gently adjusted the blanket. A tear slid down Lily's cheek. "I'll be right here," Sarah whispered, settling into the chair beside the bed. "You're not alone." To her surprise, Lily's small hand crept out from beneath the covers, reaching blindly. Sarah took it, feeling the fragile bones and cool skin against her palm. They sat in silence until the child drifted into uneasy sleep. The next morning, Sarah arrived early, determined to establish herself in the household. She brought fresh flowers for the main rooms and prepared a light breakfast of oatmeal with honey and berries, foods that might tempt a child with little appetite. When William Carter appeared, looking haggard and sleep-deprived, she had coffee waiting. "You're settling in well," he observed, accepting the mug gratefully. "Yes, sir. Mrs. Henderson is an excellent teacher." Sarah hesitated. "I noticed Lily enjoys drawing. I thought perhaps some new art supplies might interest her." William's expression clouded. "We've tried everything. Art teachers, music therapy, toys from around the world. Nothing reaches her." "Sometimes the simplest gestures mean the most," Sarah offered. "May I have permission to bring her breakfast this morning? I've prepared something that might appeal to her." He studied her for a long moment. "Nurse Collins usually—" "Just today, please." Something in her tone must have resonated because he nodded. "All right. But don't be discouraged if she doesn't respond." With William's permission, Sarah brought the tray to Lily's room. The child was awake, sitting in her window seat, sketchbook open before her. The wildflower from yesterday had been placed in a small cup of water. "Good morning, Lily. I brought you breakfast." Sarah set the tray on the small table. Oatmeal with honey and fresh berries. "My son—" She paused, pain flaring briefly. "My son loved this on cold mornings." Lily didn't look up, but her pencil stopped moving across the page. "I notice you kept the flower," Sarah continued, arranging the tray. "I thought perhaps you might like to draw it. Artists need models sometimes, don't they?" She placed the bowl within reach and stepped back, not wanting to hover. "I'll leave this here for when you're hungry." "No pressure." As she turned to leave, she heard a tiny sound, so faint she almost missed it. There whispered, "Thank you." Sarah froze, afraid to shatter the moment by reacting too strongly. "You're welcome, Lily," she said quietly, then left the room, heart pounding. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah established a careful routine. Each morning she brought Lily breakfast and fresh flowers. She spoke softly about simple things, the changing leaves, the birds visiting the garden, memories of her own childhood. Lily rarely responded verbally, but Sarah noticed small changes. The child would watch her move about the room, would accept the food placed before her, would sometimes hold a flower to examine its petals. One rainy afternoon, Sarah brought tea and found Lily crying silently, her small body shaking with suppressed sobs. Without hesitation, she sat beside the child and opened her arms in invitation. To her surprise, Lily crawled into her embrace, burying her face against Sarah's shoulder. "It hurts," the girl whispered, voice raspy from disuse. "The medicine makes everything hurt." Sarah stroked the child's back, feeling each vertebra through the thin nightgown. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I want to go outside," Lily murmured. "I miss the grass. Have you asked your father?" Lily tensed. "Daddy says I have to do what Dr. Blackwood says. And Dr. Blackwood says outside is dangerous for me." Her voice dropped further. "But I think the medicine is more dangerous." Alarm bells rang in Sarah's mind. Before she could respond, the door opened, and Nurse Collins entered with her medical kit. "It's time for Lily's afternoon treatment," she announced, eyeing their embrace with disapproval. Sarah reluctantly released the child, who immediately withdrew, face shuttering into the familiar blank expression. "I'll come back later with dinner, Lily," she promised. That evening, Sarah found William in his study reviewing documents. He looked up as she entered, surprise evident on his face. "Mr. Carter, forgive the interruption. May I speak with you about Lily?" He gestured to a chair. "Has something happened?" "She spoke to me today," Sarah said, watching hope flicker across his tired features. "She said she misses going outside." William sighed. "Dr. Blackwood has advised against outdoor exposure. Her immune system is compromised. With proper precautions, surely a short visit to the garden would be possible." Sarah pressed. "Fresh air, natural beauty. These things heal in ways medicine cannot. You don't understand the severity of her condition. Ms. Mitchell, with all due respect, sir, I understand that a child is suffering." Sarah leaned forward. "Not just from illness, but from isolation. Lily needs more than treatments. She needs moments of joy, however small." William's expression hardened. "Dr. Blackwood has saved countless children with his methods. If strict isolation is part of the protocol, then we follow it without question." Sarah recognized the fear driving his rigid adherence to the doctor's orders. "Mr. Carter, when was the last time you spent time with Lily? Just you and her, without medical staff present?" The question struck a nerve. "I see her every day. But do you connect with her? Does she speak to you as she did to me today?" William stood abruptly. "I appreciate your concern, Ms. Mitchell, but I implore you to manage my household, not question my parenting or my daughter's medical care. Dr. Blackwood is the foremost expert in pediatric oncology. His treatment plans are not open to debate by household staff." The rebuke stung, but Sarah stood her ground. "I apologize if I overstepped. I care about Lily's well-being, all aspects of it." "As do I," William said, his voice softening slightly. "More than anything in this world." Sarah nodded and turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Mr. Carter, Lily drew something new today. Not a dark landscape, but a flower, the one I brought her. It's the first colorful thing she's created in months, according to Mrs. Henderson." She left him standing there, conflict evident in his expression. Back in her quarters, Sarah opened her journal and began documenting her observations. Lily's reactions to medications, the strict isolation, the controlled access to the child, and, most troubling, the fear she'd glimpsed in those blue eyes. Something wasn't right in the Carter household, and Sarah was determined to discover what it was, for Lily's sake, and for the son she couldn't save. Chapter 3. Growing Suspicions. October gave way to November, bringing fierce coastal storms that lashed against the mansion's windows. Inside, a different kind of storm was brewing as Sarah's relationship with Lily continued to strengthen. much to Nurse Collins' visible displeasure. The breakthrough came during the 3rd week of Sarah's employment. She was brushing Lily's newly growing hair, pale wisps that had begun to cover her scalp, when the child suddenly stiffened. "Don't hurt me." "Mommy," she whispered, voice trembling. Sarah's hand froze mid-stroke. "Lily, I'm Sarah, remember? I would never hurt you, sweetheart." The girl's eyes cleared, confusion replacing fear. "Sorry, sometimes I forget." Sarah set the brush down and moved to face Lily, keeping her voice gentle. "What do you mean you forget?" Lily fidgeted with the edge of her blanket. "After medicine, things get mixed up. Sometimes I see Mommy instead of Nurse Collins. Sometimes I can't remember yesterday from last year." She looked up, her eyes suddenly lucid and piercing. "Am I going crazy, Sarah?" "No, sweetheart. Not at all." Sarah took the small hands in hers. "Some medicines can make your thoughts fuzzy. It's not your fault. Nurse Collins says I'm special. That's why I need special medicine." Lily's voice dropped to a whisper, but it burns inside. "And after I can't remember things. Important things." Sarah's alarm deepened. Memory issues weren't typical side effects of standard chemotherapy. "Lily, does your daddy know how the medicine makes you feel?" The child's reaction was immediate. She pulled her hands away, curling into herself. "Don't tell Daddy!" "He'll be mad at me for complaining. He wants me to get better so badly. I'm sure he wouldn't be angry about. He gets so upset when I talk about the medicine. Says I have to trust the doctors." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I don't want him to be sad again. Not after Mommy." Sarah hesitated, torn between respecting Lily's fears and her growing concern. Before she could respond, the door opened, and Nurse Collins entered carrying her usual medical kit. "Time for Lily's afternoon treatment," she announced with her customary briskness. Sarah stood. "I've just finished helping Lily with her hair." She's mentioned feeling confused after her medications. Collins' smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened. Cognitive disruption is a documented side effect of her treatment protocol. Dr. Blackwood is fully aware and monitoring the situation. She specifically mentioned memory loss and visual hallucinations. "That seems severe for—" "Ms. Mitchell," Collins interrupted, "unless you've suddenly acquired a medical degree, I suggest you leave Lily's treatment to the professionals." She set her kit on the bedside table. "Mr. Carter has been updated on all side effects and has approved the current course." Sarah looked at Lily, who had retreated into silence, eyes downcast. "I'll see you at dinner then, Lily." As she passed the nurse, Collins muttered, "You're overstepping, Mitchell." Dangerous ground. The warning only strengthened Sarah's resolve. That evening, after the household settled for the night, she returned to Lily's wing, intending to check on the child. As she approached, she heard voices from within the room. William and Nurse Collins in heated discussion. "These dosages seem higher than last month," William was saying, his tone concerned. "Dr. Blackwood adjusts the protocol based on Lily's blood work," Collins replied smoothly. "The increase is necessary to combat the new cell growth we've detected. But she's barely responsive after treatments now. Last week she didn't recognize me for almost an hour. Temporary cognitive effects, as we've discussed. The alternative is disease progression, Mr. Carter. Do you want to risk that?" A heavy silence followed. "No, of course not." "Then we continue as directed. Dr. Blackwood has never lost a patient who followed his protocol exactly." Sarah retreated before they emerged, her mind racing. William was asking questions, that was promising. But the nurse's defensive responses and subtle manipulation of his fears troubled her deeply. The next morning, Sarah arrived to find Lily still asleep, her small face tense even in slumber. On the nightstand lay her medications, a formidable array of bottles with printed warnings. Sarah examined them carefully, memorizing names: Neurovastat, Immuno C9, Region X4. None were familiar to her from her time in hospital administration. She opened Lily's medication journal, where Nurse Collins recorded each dose. The amounts had indeed increased substantially over the past month, despite notations of increased lethargy and temporary dissociative episodes. Sarah's concern deepened when she reached the bottom drawer of Lily's dresser while putting away laundry. Hidden beneath winter sweaters was a collection of drawings unlike the ones Lily usually created. These weren't landscapes, but chaotic scribbles of dark colors with phrases embedded in childish handwriting. "Make it stop," Hurts inside, can't remember. Most disturbing was a crude drawing of a tall figure with a syringe, standing over a small figure in a bed. Written above, bad medicine. That afternoon, Sarah visited a pharmacy in town, hoping to learn more about Lily's medications. The pharmacist, a middle-aged woman named Gloria, frowned at the names. "Some of these sound like research compounds, not approved medications," she said. "Where did you see these prescribed?" Sarah chose her words carefully. "A friend's child is receiving them as part of an experimental treatment protocol. I'm concerned about the side effects," Gloria typed into her computer. "Neurovastat isn't in our database. Immuno C9 shows as a restricted research compound, not approved for pediatric use." Her frown deepened. "Who's administering these?" "A specialist, Dr. Richard Blackwood." Recognition flashed in the pharmacist's eyes. "Blackwood. He's published some controversial papers on aggressive approaches to pediatric cancers. Brilliant man, but—" She hesitated. "There have been questions about his methods." "What kind of questions?" "Ethical concerns. Pushing boundaries of informed consent. Nothing proven." Gloria leaned closer. "If your friend has concerns, they should seek a second opinion. Immediately." Sarah returned to the Carter mansion with a growing sense of dread. As she walked through the main hall, she nearly collided with William, who was pacing anxiously, phone in hand. "Mr. Carter, is everything all right?" He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Dr. Blackwood has called an emergency consultation. Apparently, Lily's latest tests show concerning results." "What kind of results?" "Organ stress indicators. Liver function tests are elevated." His voice cracked slightly. "They want to adjust her treatment again." Sarah took a chance. "Mr. Carter, have you considered getting a second opinion?" His expression darkened. "Dr. Blackwood is the best in his field. He took Lily's case personally when others had given up hope." "Even the best doctors can benefit from collaboration," Sarah suggested carefully. "Medicine is always evolving." William's phone rang before he could respond. He answered immediately, his posture stiffening as he listened. "Yes, doctor. Yes, I understand. Whatever you recommend." He ended the call, his face ashen. "He's coming personally tomorrow. The situation is urgent." Sarah watched him retreat to his study, his shoulders bent under invisible weight. Her decision crystallized in that moment. She needed more information about Blackwood and his treatments, and she needed it quickly. That evening, after ensuring Lily was settled for the night, Sarah slipped down to the basement storage rooms. Mrs. Henderson had mentioned that all household records were kept there, including medical files. The room was cold and smelled of old paper and dampness. Using her phone's flashlight, Sarah navigated through labeled boxes until she found what she sought. Medical records. Lily. The box was surprisingly light. Inside were neatly organized folders, but they only dated back 6 months to the beginning of Lily's treatment under Blackwood. Sarah frowned. Where were the records from before? Birth records, childhood vaccinations, developmental checkups. In the back corner, she spotted a larger storage cabinet, locked with a simple key mechanism. Using a paperclip from her pocket, she carefully manipulated the lock until it clicked open, a skill learned during her hospital administration days, when filing cabinets frequently jammed. Inside were older boxes labeled by year. Sarah pulled out several, scanning their contents quickly. What she found, or rather didn't find, was troubling. There were gaps in Lily's medical history, entire years missing. The records that existed showed a healthy child with normal developmental milestones until age 4. Then nothing, until the cancer diagnosis 6 months ago. Most concerning was a folder labeled Previous Consultations. Inside were letters from several respected pediatric oncologists, all declining to treat Lily with experimental protocols, citing ethical concerns and insufficient evidence of malignancy. One letter in particular stood out, from Dr. Eleanor Winters at Boston Children's Hospital. "While I understand your desire for aggressive intervention, Mr. Carter, the preliminary tests are not conclusive for malignancy. The symptoms Lily presents could be attributed to several less severe conditions. I strongly recommend standard diagnostic procedures before considering any experimental treatments. I cannot in good conscience support Dr. Blackwood's proposed protocol without clearer evidence. Sarah photographed the letter with her phone, hands shaking. The date was just 2 weeks after Catherine Carter's accident, when William was at his most vulnerable. A noise from upstairs startled her. Quickly, she returned the files and relocked the cabinet, leaving everything as she had found it. As she crept back upstairs, her mind raced with implications. What if Lily's cancer diagnosis wasn't clear-cut? What if Blackwood had exploited William's grief and fear to implement experimental treatments on a child who might not have needed them? The next morning, Sarah arrived early, determined to be present when Dr. Blackwood visited. She was arranging fresh flowers in the main hall when a sleek black car pulled into the circular driveway. Dr. Richard Blackwood cut an imposing figure, tall, silver-haired, with a commanding presence accentuated by an impeccably tailored suit and the confident stride of a man accustomed to authority. Nurse Collins greeted him at the door with deferential respect. "Good morning, Doctor. Mr. Carter is waiting in his study. Lily's latest blood work is prepared for your review." Blackwood nodded curtly, handing her his coat. His gaze fell on Sarah, eyes narrowing slightly. "New staff?" "Sarah Mitchell, housekeeper," Collins replied dismissively. "Started a few weeks ago." Blackwood studied Sarah for an uncomfortable moment. "Ensure we're not disturbed during my examination of the patient." Sarah nodded respectfully, but as they walked away, she caught fragments of their hushed conversation. Becoming too attached to the child. Might ask questions. Increase the sedative component. Heart-pounding, Sarah retreated to the kitchen. Through the window, she watched as another car arrived, this one containing a younger man carrying medical equipment. He was escorted directly to Lily's wing. For 2 hours, the house was eerily quiet. When Sarah brought coffee to the study, as requested, she found William sitting alone, looking shell-shocked. "Mr. Carter, are you all right?" He looked up, eyes unfocused. "Dr. Blackwood says Lily's condition has deteriorated. The cancer is becoming resistant to standard components of the treatment." Sarah set down the coffee tray. "What does that mean?" "For her treatment plan? He's proposing a more aggressive approach, a new compound his team has developed." William's voice was hollow. "It's not fully approved yet, but he's obtained special compassionate use authorization." "And the side effects?" "More severe, potentially, but necessary to save her life." He rubbed his face wearily. "What choice do I have, Sarah? I can't lose her too." Sarah took a deep breath. "Sir, I found something concerning in Lily's old medical files." William's head snapped up. "You went through my daughter's medical records without permission?" "I was organizing storage areas and came across—" "That's a serious violation of privacy and trust." His voice hardened. "Those records are confidential." "Sir, please, there were letters from other doctors who didn't agree with Dr. Blackwood's diagnosis, who suggested Lily might not have cancer at all, but something less severe." William stood abruptly. "That's enough. Those doctors gave up on my daughter. They offered platitudes while Blackwood offered solutions." His voice shook with emotion. "I watched my wife die suddenly, without warning. I will not stand by and let theoretical concerns endanger my daughter." "But what if the treatment itself is endangering her?" Sarah pressed. "The memory issues, the hallucinations, the organ stress." "You're fired, Ms. Mitchell." William's tone was ice-cold. "Pack your things and leave by the end of the day." Sarah stood in stunned silence as he walked out. Minutes later, Nurse Collins appeared in the doorway, a satisfied smile on her face. "I did warn you about overstepping," she said. "Your severance will be processed immediately. I'll escort you off the premises once you've collected your belongings." Devastated but determined, Sarah returned to her quarters to pack. As she folded her clothes mechanically, a soft knock at her door startled her. One of the kitchen staff stood there, looking nervous. "Miss Lily's asking for you," the young woman whispered. "She's crying something awful. Nurse Collins can't calm her down." Sarah hesitated only a moment before following. In the hallway outside Lily's room, she could hear the child's desperate sobs. Inside, Collins was attempting to administer an injection, while William hovered anxiously nearby. "Please, no more medicine," Lily cried, struggling weakly. "I want Sarah." When she saw Sarah in the doorway, Lily extended her thin arms pleadingly. "Sarah, don't leave me, please." Something broke in William's expression as he watched his daughter reach for Sarah with more emotion than she'd shown in months. He looked from the hysterical child to the nurse's frustrated face, then to Sarah standing uncertainly at the threshold. "Let her try," he said finally, stepping back. Collins protested. "Mr. Carter, Dr. Blackwood was explicit about the timing of this dose. Just give us a moment." Sarah approached the bed slowly, sitting beside the trembling child. "I'm here, Lily, I'm right here." Lily collapsed against her, clinging with surprising strength. "Don't let them give me more medicine. It makes the monsters come." Sarah stroked her back soothingly, meeting William's troubled gaze over the child's head. "No monsters will get you, I promise." She looked directly at William. "No one will hurt you while I'm here." Something shifted in William's eyes. Doubt, perhaps, or the first crack in his absolute faith in Blackwood's treatment. He glanced at the syringe in Collins' hand, then at his daughter's desperate embrace of the housekeeper he'd just fired. "Miss Mitchell," he said quietly, "I may have been hasty earlier. Perhaps we should discuss your concerns more thoroughly." To the nurse, he added, "Hold that dose for now. I want to review the new protocol with Dr. Blackwood again before proceeding." Collins' face tightened with barely controlled anger. "Sir, delaying treatment even by hours could compromise. That's my decision to make." William's voice regained some of its executive authority. "My daughter, my decision." As Collins stormed out, Sarah continued to hold Lily, who gradually calmed in her embrace. William watched them, conflict evident in his expression. "I just want what's best for her," he whispered almost to himself. Sarah met his gaze steadily. "So do I, Mr. Carter, so do I." In that moment, with Lily finally peaceful in her arms and William's certainty visibly shaken, Sarah recognized the first real opportunity to uncover the truth about Dr. Blackwood's treatments and potentially save a child from becoming a casualty of medical ambition disguised as care. Chapter 4. Hidden Investigations. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight as Sarah carefully closed her bedroom door. The mansion was silent, except for the persistent rhythm of rain against the windows. She hadn't been fired, after all. William had rescinded his decision after witnessing Lily's desperate attachment to her. But Sarah knew her position remained precarious. She pulled out her journal and a penlight, documenting the day's alarming events. For the past week since Dr. Blackwood's visit, she'd been secretly recording observations, Lily's symptoms, medication schedules, and behavioral changes. The pattern was troubling. Lily was most lucid in the mornings before her first dose and became increasingly disoriented after each treatment. Sarah flipped back through her notes, studying the medication names she'd recorded. Her internet searches had yielded limited information. Most were labeled as investigational compounds, with restricted data. But one thing was clear. Several were classified as psychoactive substances not approved for pediatric use. A soft knock at her door startled her. Sarah quickly hid the journal under her pillow before opening the door a crack. To her surprise, William stood in the hallway, his face haggard in the dim light. "Mr. Carter." "May I speak with you?" His voice was low, strained. "It's about Lily." Sarah opened the door wider, gesturing him inside. William entered hesitantly, as if uncomfortable in the staff quarters. He remained standing, hands shoved deep in his pockets. "I've been thinking about what you said, about the missing medical records." He met her eyes directly. "You're right. There are gaps I can't explain." Sarah held her breath, afraid to break the moment with the wrong response. "Catherine handled all of Lily's medical care before—" He swallowed hard. "Before the accident. She was thorough, organized. There should be complete records." "When did Lily first show symptoms?" Sarah asked gently. William frowned, considering. "It's strange. I'm not sure exactly. After Catherine's passing, Lily withdrew emotionally. That was expected, of course. But then she developed fatigue, loss of appetite." His frown deepened. Dr. Blackwood was a colleague of Catherine's. He reached out after the funeral, offered his condolences. When I mentioned Lily's symptoms, he insisted on examining her personally, and the diagnosis came immediately. Within days. William ran a hand through his disheveled hair. Everything happened so fast. One day we were grieving Catherine. The next we were fighting for Lily's life too. Blackwood said we caught it early, but that we needed to act aggressively. Sarah chose her words carefully. Did you seek confirmation from another specialist? Blackwood arranged consultations, but they were brief. The other doctors deferred to him. William's expression darkened. Except for one, Dr. Winters at Boston Children's. She wanted more tests, more time. But Blackwood insisted we didn't have time. The letter I found from Dr. Winters expressed doubts about the diagnosis itself. William paced the small room. Blackwood said she was being unnecessarily cautious, that her hesitation could cost Lily her life. His voice cracked. I couldn't bear the thought of losing her too, so I authorized the treatments. Without a clear second opinion confirming the diagnosis, Sarah said softly, not accusingly. William stopped pacing. Are you suggesting Blackwood misdiagnosed my daughter deliberately? I'm suggesting that a vulnerable father who had just lost his wife might have been rushed into decisions without full information. William stood silent for a long moment, internal conflict visible on his face. Finally, he said, I need to know the truth. If there's even a chance that Lily is receiving unnecessary treatments. He couldn't finish the sentence. We need evidence, Sarah said. Concrete proof, not just suspicions. What do you propose? First, we need complete information on these medications. And we need an independent evaluation of Lily's condition, someone not connected to Blackwood. William nodded slowly. I can arrange that discreetly. What about the medications? I've been recording names and doses, but I need to know exactly what these compounds are. William moved to the door. Meet me in my study tomorrow night after the household is asleep. There's something I need to show you. After he left, Sarah remained awake for hours, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. Whatever William planned to share could be the key to unraveling Dr. Blackwood's treatment, or it could be a trap orchestrated by those who wanted to silence her concerns. The next day passed with excruciating slowness. Sarah maintained her usual routine, bringing Lily breakfast and spending time with the child, while avoiding Nurse Collins as much as possible. The nurse watched her with undisguised suspicion, documenting every interaction in her medical log. Sarah, Lily whispered during their afternoon reading session, I remembered something. Sarah kept her voice casual, aware of the monitoring system in the room. What did you remember, sweetheart? Before Daddy brought Dr. Blackwood home, I wasn't sick. The child's voice was barely audible. I was sad about Mommy, but I wasn't sick. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. What do you mean? Lily's eyes darted nervously to the door. The first medicine was different. It made me sleep a lot. Then I started feeling sick for real. Her small hand gripped Sarah's. Am I crazy? No, Lily, you're not crazy. Sarah squeezed her hand reassuringly. Sometimes it's hard to remember things correctly when we're upset or taking strong medicine. Nurse Collins says I imagine things, that the medicine is fixing my brain because it's sick too. Lily's voice trembled. But I don't think my brain was sick before the medicine. The door opened before Sarah could respond. Nurse Collins entered with her medication tray, her smile tight and professional. Time for Lily's afternoon dose. Sarah stood noting the array of pills and injection vials. That seems like more than usual. Dr. Blackwood adjusted the protocol yesterday, Collins replied smoothly. Mr. Carter has approved all changes. Sarah looked at Lily, who had retreated into silence, her face a mask of resignation. I'll be back later with your dinner. Lily, we can finish our story then. As she passed Collins, the nurse muttered, Mr. Carter may have temporarily forgotten himself, but I assure you, Dr. Blackwood hasn't. Tread carefully. The warning lingered as Sarah went about her duties. At midnight, she made her way to William's study, every creak in the old mansion making her pause. The door was unlocked as promised. William was waiting, a glass of bourbon in his hand. He looked up as she entered, his eyes red-rimmed from either lack of sleep or tears. Perhaps both. Lock the door, he instructed. Sarah complied, then joined him at his desk. He opened a drawer and withdrew a small key. Catherine kept meticulous records of everything related to Lily's health. Vaccination schedules, developmental milestones, every childhood illness. His voice was hollow. After she died, I couldn't bear to look at them. The reminder was too painful. He stood and moved to a painting on the wall, a seascape that Sarah had admired. Swinging it aside revealed a small wall safe, but I never got rid of them. The safe contained a single accordion file bulging with documents. William placed it reverently on the desk. Catherine's records. Together they spread the contents across the desk. Pediatrician visits, growth charts, school health assessments. All painted a picture of a healthy, thriving child with no serious health concerns. The last entry is 3 weeks before Catherine's accident, William noted, pointing to a routine checkup record. No concerning symptoms, no referrals to specialists. So Lily showed no signs of illness until after Catherine's passing, Sarah said, organizing the timeline in her mind. And Blackwood entered the picture immediately after the funeral. William pulled out another folder, this one containing his wife's autopsy report. His hands trembled as he opened it. Catherine's accident was sudden. A stroke while driving. She was only 38, with no history of health problems. Sarah scanned the report, noting terminology from her hospital administration days. No warning signs? No symptoms beforehand. None. She was perfectly healthy. William's voice cracked. At least I thought she was. Sarah turned the page and froze. William, look at this. She pointed to a toxicology finding buried in the report. Elevated levels of unidentified compound JX7R detected in blood samples. Origin unknown. Possible research substance, not FDA approved. William stared at the notation. What does that mean? I don't know. But it's strange that an unidentified research compound would be in Catherine's system. Sarah looked up. Was she involved in medical research? Clinical trials? No, she was an artist, not a scientist, but... William hesitated. She did volunteer at Blackwood's charitable foundation. Fundraising events, art therapy for patients. A cold suspicion formed in Sarah's mind. How long had she known Blackwood before her accident? About a year. They met at a hospital charity gala. Sarah carefully photographed the autopsy report with her phone, then returned to Lily's medical records. Let's focus on what happened after Catherine's passing. You said Blackwood offered to examine Lily when she showed signs of grief-related depression. William nodded. He said it was common for trauma to trigger latent health issues. That Catherine would want him to look after Lily. And the initial diagnosis was stress-induced immune dysfunction. He recommended a supportive therapy to prevent more serious developments. Sarah found the first prescription in the stack, dated just 10 days after Catherine's funeral. The medication: neurosupportive compound J12, experimental, compassionate use only. J12, Sarah repeated. Similar naming convention to the compound found in Catherine's toxicology report. JX7R. William's face paled. You think there's a connection? I don't know. But it's a strange coincidence. Sarah continued through the records. 2 weeks after starting J12, Lily developed more serious symptoms: fatigue, cognitive issues, low blood counts. That's when Blackwood diagnosed the cancer and began aggressive treatment. William stood abruptly, pacing the room. Are you suggesting Blackwood deliberately made my daughter sick? I'm not suggesting anything yet, Sarah said quietly. I'm looking at a timeline and seeing concerning patterns. William returned to the desk, studying the records with new eyes. If what you're implying is true, it would mean... He couldn't finish the sentence, the implications too horrific to voice. We need more information, Sarah said. Someone who can identify these compounds and their effects. I know someone. William pulled out his phone. An old college friend. He's a pharmaceutical researcher at MIT now. If anyone can analyze these medications without raising flags, it's him. We'll need samples. William's expression hardened with resolve. I can get them. Collins keeps backup vials in the medical refrigerator. Sarah hesitated. William, if we're right about this, confronting Blackwood could be dangerous. Catherine's accident might not have been an accident at all. He finished the thought, his voice barely audible. God, what have I allowed to happen in my home? To my family. We proceed carefully, Sarah cautioned. For Lily's sake. William nodded grimly. Tomorrow night, Collins takes her weekly evening off. I'll get the samples then. As Sarah prepared to leave, William caught her arm. Why are you doing this? Risking your job, possibly more for my daughter? Sarah touched the locket at her neck, feeling the weight of her own loss. "Because I couldn't save my son, but together we might save your daughter." The next day crawled by with excruciating slowness. Sarah maintained her routine, hyper-aware of Colin's scrutiny. The nurse seemed more agitated than usual, checking her phone frequently and speaking in hushed tones when she thought no one was listening. After dinner, Sarah read to Lily until the child drifted to sleep. As she tucked the blanket around her thin shoulders, Sarah silently promised to protect her whatever the cost. At 11, Nurse Collins left for her evening off, her car lights disappearing down the winding driveway. Sarah waited 30 minutes before making her way to the medical supply room adjacent to Lily's wing. William was already there, carefully examining the locked refrigerator. "The key is with Collins's things," he whispered, frustration evident. "But I have the master keys to the house." He tried several before finding one that worked. Inside the refrigerator were dozens of labeled vials and pre-filled syringes, arranged in daily dose containers. "We need samples of everything," Sarah said, pulling out sterile collection tubes from her pocket. "And we can't take too much from any one vial or she'll notice." Working quickly, they extracted small amounts from multiple vials, carefully labeling each sample. Sarah photographed the original labels with her phone, ensuring they could match samples to prescribed doses later. As William reached for a vial at the back of the refrigerator, he froze. "Sarah, look at this." He held up a small case labeled Emergency Protocol. Inside were 3 syringes containing a dark amber liquid with warning labels indicating high toxicity. "Why would an emergency protocol contain a toxic substance?" Sarah whispered, photographing the case and its contents. "I've never seen this before." Blackwood never mentioned an emergency protocol. William's hand trembled slightly. "What is he planning to do to my daughter?" A noise from the hallway made them both freeze. Footsteps approached, then paused outside the door. Sarah quickly closed the refrigerator, while William pocketed their samples. They turned off the light and pressed themselves against the wall beside the door. The handle turned, but the door didn't open, presumably locked from their side. A soft curse, then the footsteps retreated. "That wasn't Collins," William breathed. "Her night off doesn't end until morning. We need to check on Lily," Sarah whispered urgently. They made their way quietly to Lily's room. The child was sleeping peacefully, undisturbed. William adjusted the security monitor beside her bed, positioning it to capture more of the room. Back in the hallway, he said, "I'll take these samples to my friend tonight. He owes me a favor. He'll analyze them immediately." "Be careful," Sarah warned. "If Blackwood suspects what we're doing—" "I know." William's expression hardened. "I've been a fool, trusting blindly while my daughter suffered. That ends tonight." After William left, Sarah couldn't sleep. She sat in a chair by her window, watching the driveway for his return. Hours passed. At 3 a.m., headlights finally appeared as his car pulled up to the mansion. She met him in the kitchen, where he slumped into a chair, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. "James is analyzing the samples now," he said, accepting the coffee she offered. He was shocked by the labels alone. Several are restricted compounds, not approved for human use, let alone pediatric patients. "How long until we have results?" "Tomorrow afternoon at the earliest. He's running comprehensive tests." William rubbed his face wearily. "I told him to be discreet. If Blackwood has the connections I suspect, word could get back to him." Sarah nodded, understanding the danger. "What do we do in the meantime?" "Act normal. Don't give Collins any reason to suspect." William's phone buzzed, a text message that made his expression darken. "Blackwood wants to meet tomorrow. Says there's a critical development in Lily's case." Fear coiled in Sarah's stomach. The timing seemed suspicious. Indeed. William stood, newfound determination straightening his shoulders. "I'll meet him. Play along. You stay close to Lily." "Always," Sarah promised. As dawn broke over the Atlantic, casting golden light across the mansion's facade, Sarah and William shared a moment of silent resolve. The battle for Lily's truth, and perhaps her life, had begun in earnest. And somewhere in the mansion's shadows, unseen enemies were moving against them, determined to protect secrets that had already cost one Carter her life. Chapter 5. Unexpected Alliance. The morning brought a crystalline November sky, deceptively serene above the Carter mansion. Sarah arrived in the kitchen earlier than usual, preparing a special breakfast for Lily. Heart-shaped pancakes with fresh berries, a childhood favorite she'd mentioned during one of their conversations. If today was going to be challenging, at least it could begin with a small happiness. William appeared in the doorway, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, armor for his upcoming confrontation with Blackwood. The dark circles beneath his eyes betrayed his sleepless night. "You look like a man going to battle," Sarah observed, sliding a cup of coffee toward him. "In many ways, I am." William accepted the coffee gratefully. Blackwood arrives at 10. The meeting is in my study, and Collins, administering Lily's morning medication as we speak. His jaw tightened. "I wanted to stop her, but we can't tip our hand yet." Sarah arranged Lily's breakfast tray. "I'll stay with her during your meeting. Watch for any unusual reactions." William nodded, then pulled a small device from his pocket. "Wear this." It looks like a normal brooch, but it's actually a recording device. My company developed it for corporate security purposes. Sarah pinned the elegant silver flower to her uniform. "You think Blackwood might come to Lily's room? I don't know what to expect anymore." William's voice was strained. "But I want every interaction documented from now on." They parted with a silent nod, united by purpose if not yet by trust. Sarah carried the breakfast tray to Lily's room, finding the child propped up against pillows, while Nurse Collins recorded vital signs in her medical log. "Good morning. Lily, I've brought your favorite." Sarah set the tray on the bedside table, noting the fresh injection mark on the child's arm. "How are you feeling today?" Lily's eyes were already glazing over, the morning dose taking effect. "Floaty," she murmured. "Light clouds inside." Collins snapped her notebook shut. "She needs rest after her medication, not excessive stimulation." "Heart-shaped pancakes are hardly excessive stimulation," Sarah replied mildly. "Mr. Carter asked me to stay with Lily this morning while he meets with Dr. Blackwood." The nurse's expression tightened. "That won't be necessary. I'll be monitoring her. Nevertheless, I'll stay." Sarah settled into the window seat, making it clear she wouldn't be dismissed. Collins gathered her equipment, frustration evident in her jerky movements. "Fine, but don't disturb her if she falls asleep. These medications require proper rest to be effective." After the nurse left, Sarah moved to Lily's bedside. The child was struggling to keep her eyes open, the pancakes untouched. "Not hungry?" Sarah asked gently. "Food tastes like metal now," Lily whispered. "Everything does." Sarah made a note in her journal, metallic taste increasing lethargy after morning medication. "Would you like me to read to you instead?" Lily nodded weakly. The Secret Garden Story. Sarah retrieved the book from the shelf and began reading, her voice soft and steady. By the third page, Lily had drifted into an unnatural sleep, her breathing shallow and labored. Sarah checked her pulse, rapid but steady, and continued reading aloud for the benefit of anyone monitoring the room. Downstairs, the front doorbell announced Dr. Blackwood's arrival. Sarah glanced at the clock. Precisely 10, the man was punctual if nothing else. Through Lily's window, she watched the doctor stride up the front steps, his silver hair gleaming in the morning sun. He carried a leather briefcase and walked with the confidence of someone accustomed to deference. 20 minutes later, raised voices echoed from the study below. Sarah couldn't distinguish words, but the tension was unmistakable. She stroked Lily's hair, wishing she could shield the child from whatever storm was brewing. The door burst open as Collins rushed in, face flushed with agitation. "Dr. Blackwood needs Lily's latest charts immediately." Sarah watched as the nurse gathered files from a locked cabinet. "Is everything all right?" I heard voices. "Mr. Carter is being difficult about the new treatment protocol." Collins's voice was tight with controlled fury. "After everything Dr. Blackwood has done for this family, his hesitation is both insulting and dangerous for Lily." "What new protocol?" Sarah asked innocently. Collins paused at the door. "An intensive intervention phase. Lily's condition is deteriorating faster than anticipated." Her eyes narrowed. "Which is why interference from unqualified personnel is particularly unwelcome right now." After she left, Sarah checked that Lily was still sleeping before slipping to the door. The house's old heating system included vents that connected rooms, sometimes carrying voices between floors. Sarah located the ornate floor vent near Lily's bed and knelt beside it, straining to hear the conversation below. Absolutely out of the question. William's voice carried clearly, anger making it sharp. "You're proposing to essentially put my daughter into a medically induced coma for weeks." "It's the only way to administer the full protocol safely," Blackwood replied, his tone professionally reasonable but with an undercurrent of steel. "Her system requires complete rest to fully respond to the treatment. And convenient that she wouldn't be able to communicate during this period," William shot back. A tense silence followed. "Mr. Carter," Blackwood finally said, each word precise, "I understand your emotional response. Parents often struggle with aggressive treatment protocols. But your daughter's life is at stake. This hesitation, this sudden questioning of my methods after months of compliance, is not only irrational but potentially fatal for Lily. I'm not questioning your methods. Doctor," William's voice had cooled to a dangerous calm, "I'm requesting more information before making such a significant decision. Surely that's reasonable." "Of course." Blackwood's tone remained smooth. "I've prepared a complete briefing package on the procedure. Review it today, and we'll proceed tomorrow morning. A delay beyond that would be inadvisable." Footsteps moved across the study. Sarah quickly returned to her chair just as Lily stirred, whimpering in her sleep. She took the child's hand, alarmed at how cold her fingers felt despite the warm room. An hour later, William appeared in the doorway, his face ashen but composed. "How is she?" "Thea's sleeping heavily since her medication. Her pulse is elevated and her extremities are cold." William approached the bed, tenderly brushing hair from Lily's forehead. "Blackwood wants to put her into a medically induced coma starting tomorrow. Claims it's the only way to administer what he calls the final phase of treatment. And if you refuse, he predicts rapid decline." William's voice was hollow. "Says the cancer will overwhelm her system within weeks without this intervention." Sarah met his gaze. "You don't believe him." "I don't know what to believe anymore." William sank into the chair beside the bed. "My friend should have the preliminary analysis soon. Until then." He trailed off, watching his daughter's troubled sleep. "We stall," Sarah finished. "Buy time until we have evidence." William nodded grimly. "I told Blackwood I needed 24 hours to review his materials. He wasn't pleased, but he agreed." He lowered his voice further. "There's something else. When I mentioned getting a second opinion just to test his reaction, he became different. For a moment, the professional mask slipped." "What did you see?" "Rage," William whispered. "Cold, calculating rage." A soft knock interrupted them. Collins stood in the doorway, her professional smile firmly in place. "Dr. Blackwood would like to examine Lily before he leaves." William straightened. "Of course." Blackwood entered, his imposing figure filling the doorway. His clinical gaze swept over Lily, then settled on Sarah. "I prefer to examine my patients privately." "Ms. Mitchell stays," William said firmly. "She's been a tremendous comfort to Lily." Something dangerous flashed in Blackwood's eyes before his professional mask returned. "As you wish. Though I must note my concern about non-medical personnel becoming overly involved in Lily's care." The doctor's examination was thorough and methodical. He checked Lily's vital signs, pupil responses and reflexes, making notes in a leather-bound journal. The child stirred but didn't fully wake, murmuring incoherently when Blackwood tested her pain responses. "The cognitive suppression is concerning," he commented, closing his journal. "A side effect of the current medication that the coma protocol would actually alleviate. Her mind would be protected while her body receives the necessary treatment." "I'll review everything and let you know my decision tomorrow," William replied, his tone neutral, but his stance protective beside his daughter's bed. After Blackwood and Collins left to discuss administrative matters, William exhaled shakily. He's pushing hard for this coma protocol. Why the urgency? That perhaps he fears Lily might say something revealing if she becomes more lucid, Sarah suggested. Or maybe William's phone vibrated. He checked the screen and stiffened. "It's James. He has preliminary results." He stepped into the hallway to take the call, returning minutes later with a face drained of color. "We need to talk privately now." They moved to the small sitting area adjacent to Lily's room, leaving the door open to monitor her. William's hands trembled as he pulled up an encrypted file on his phone. James sent his initial analysis. "Sarah, it's worse than we imagined." He showed her the screen. "The primary compounds in Lily's medications aren't chemotherapy drugs at all. They're a combination of powerful sedatives, hallucinogens, and experimental neurotoxins. Sarah stared at the chemical breakdowns in horror. Neurotoxins? But that would cause progressive neurological damage, cognitive impairment, memory loss. William's voice cracked. Symptoms that could mimic certain types of brain cancers. He's been poisoning her, Sarah whispered, the terrible truth finally clear. Creating symptoms, then treating them with medications that cause more symptoms, requiring more treatment. But why? What could possibly motivate someone to— Money, Sarah said quietly. Research, prestige. The medications themselves are experimental. Lily isn't receiving treatment. She's an unwitting test subject. William's face contorted with rage and anguish. I gave him access to my daughter. I let him— He couldn't continue, overcome by the magnitude of the betrayal. Sarah placed a steadying hand on his arm. You couldn't have known. He exploited your grief, your desperation to save Lily after losing Catherine. Catherine, William whispered, a new horror dawning. The compound in her toxicology report. You don't think— We need more information before jumping to conclusions, Sarah cautioned. But yes, I'm concerned about the similarities in naming conventions between that compound and the ones being given to Lily. William stood abruptly. We need to get Lily out of here, away from Blackwood and Collins. Somewhere safe while we gather evidence. If we run now, we risk losing any chance of holding Blackwood accountable, Sarah argued. He'd destroy evidence, cover his tracks. Other children could suffer the same fate. I won't risk my daughter's life. I'm not suggesting we do. Sarah kept her voice calm, though her heart raced. But we need to be strategic. If we stop the medications abruptly, Lily could suffer withdrawal effects. And if Blackwood suspects we're onto him, there's no telling what he might do. William paced the small room, conflict evident in every line of his body. Finally, he said, What do you propose? We gradually reduce her medications while pretending to comply with Blackwood's plans. Buy time to gather conclusive evidence and ensure Lily's safety. Sarah leaned forward. And we find out exactly what happened to Catherine. How? The police investigated thoroughly. It was ruled an accident. We need to know if Catherine discovered something about Blackwood before her accident, if she was trying to expose him. William's expression shifted as memories resurfaced. She had become distant in the weeks before her accident. Distracted. I assumed it was work stress, but— His eyes widened. Her studio. She spent hours there, said she was working on a new series. We should look there tonight. A soft sound from Lily's room interrupted them. They rushed back to find the child stirring, her eyes fluttering open. For a brief moment they were clear and focused. Daddy? She whispered. Where's Mommy's box? William knelt beside the bed. What box, Princess? The special one. With the bird. Lily's voice was faint but more lucid than they'd heard in weeks. She said if anything happened, I should find the bird box. William and Sarah exchanged glances. Do you know where this box is? He asked gently. Lily's eyes began to cloud again, the medication reclaiming her consciousness. In the secret place. Behind the blue lady. What blue lady, Lily? Sarah prompted, but the child had already drifted away. Her brief window of clarity closed. William straightened, a new determination in his stance. The Blue Lady is a painting in Catherine's studio. A portrait of a woman in a blue dress, one of her earliest works. And the bird box? Darstay Singdusiakadue. I don't know, but we're going to find out. That evening, after ensuring Lily was settled for the night, under the watchful eye of the weekend night nurse, not Collins, thankfully, William led Sarah to the west wing of the mansion. Catherine's studio had remained locked since her passing, a shrine to grief untouched by time. William's hand trembled slightly as he unlocked the door. The air inside was stale, but still carried a faint scent of oil paints and turpentine. Canvases in various stages of completion stood on easels, ghostly in the moonlight filtering through tall windows. I couldn't bear to come in here, William admitted, his voice thick with emotion. It felt like violating her space. Sarah squeezed his arm gently. She would understand why we're here now. They searched methodically by flashlight, careful not to disturb the room's appearance too obviously. The Blue Lady portrait hung on the far wall, a hauntingly beautiful image of a woman in a sapphire dress, her expression serene yet knowing. It doesn't look like there's anything behind it, William said, examining the wall around the frame. Sarah studied the painting more closely. The woman is holding something. Look at her hands. Indeed, nestled in the painted woman's cupped palms was a small, delicately rendered bird, so realistically depicted it seemed about to take flight. That's new, William whispered. That bird wasn't in the original painting. Sarah carefully lifted the frame from the wall, revealing nothing unusual behind it. Maybe the bird itself is the clue, not the painting? They scanned the room with fresh eyes. In the corner stood a carved wooden pedestal supporting a ceramic sculpture, a stylized bird with wings outstretched. Catherine called that her freedom bird, William said. She brought it back from a trip to South America years ago. Sarah approached the sculpture. Unlike the dusty surfaces around it, the bird appeared recently handled. She carefully lifted it, revealing a small recess in the pedestal beneath. Inside lay a wooden box intricately carved with feather patterns. William took it with reverent hands. I've never seen this before. The box was locked, but the key hung on a thin chain wrapped around the bird's ceramic foot. Inside were several items, a USB drive, a small notebook, and a folded letter addressed simply Will. With shaking hands, William opened the letter and read aloud, "My dearest Will, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I pray it hasn't, that I'm being paranoid, but I can't ignore the evidence anymore. Richard isn't who we thought. The foundation work I've been doing has exposed me to disturbing information. Experimental treatments, falsified results, patients who vanish from records. I've documented everything on the drive. The notebook contains dates, names, observations. I was going to take it all to the Medical Ethics Board next week, but Richard has been acting strangely, watching me, I'm afraid, Will. If anything happens, protect Lily. Don't trust Richard with her care, no matter what. There's more to tell, but not in writing. All my love now and always, Catherine." William stared at the letter, his face a mask of grief and rage. She knew. She was going to expose him, and he couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah took the USB drive. "We need to see what's on this." In William's study, they plugged the drive into his laptop. It contained hundreds of files, patient records, research notes, email correspondence, all meticulously organized in Catherine's systematic way. The evidence painted a devastating picture. Blackwood had been using his prestigious position and charitable foundation to conduct unauthorized drug trials on vulnerable patients, primarily children from wealthy families whose parents would pay anything for cutting-edge treatments. He creates symptoms, then offers miracle cures, Sarah whispered, horror mounting as they paged through the files. The treatments cause new symptoms requiring more treatments, an endless cycle of dependency and deterioration. William found a folder labeled Compound Development. Inside were chemical formulas and testing logs for EU substances with the same JX designation found in Catherine's toxicology report. She was investigating the compounds, Sarah realized. Maybe she suspected he was testing them on her somehow. Through the foundation work, William said hoarsely, she attended events, fundraisers. He could have exposed her without her knowledge. A subfolder labeled Lily Risk Assessment confirmed their worst fears. Catherine had discovered Blackwood's interest in Lily months before her own accident. Notes detailed his unusual questions about Lily's health, his offers to perform preventative screenings. He was already targeting her, William whispered, devastation evident in every line of his face. Catherine was the only thing standing between him and Lily. Sarah's mind raced through the implications. If Catherine was preparing to expose him, Blackwood would have lost everything, his reputation, his research, his freedom. So he silenced her. William's voice was deadly calm. And then used my grief to gain access to Lily. We have enough here to go to the authorities, Sarah said, copying files to a secure cloud storage. William shook his head. Not yet. These files prove his research is unethical, but we still need direct evidence linking him to Catherine's accident and to the false diagnosis of Lily's condition. How do we get that? We set a trap. William's expression hardened with resolve. Using the one thing Blackwood wants most, unfettered access to Lily for his coma protocol. Sarah frowned. That's too risky. We can't, not actually, of course, and William clarified, but we make him believe I've agreed to the procedure. Tomorrow, when he returns, I'll tell him I've reviewed the materials and am ready to proceed with certain conditions that will force him to reveal his hand. And meanwhile, we continue reducing Lily's medication secretly. If she improves with decreased doses, it further confirms our suspicions. William closed the laptop, determination replacing despair. And we prepare contingency plans. If anything goes wrong, we need to be ready to get Lily out immediately. Sarah nodded, the gravity of their situation settling heavily between them. We should sleep. Tomorrow will require all our strength. As they left the study, William caught Sarah's hand. I can never repay what you've done for us. You saw what I couldn't or wouldn't see. I lost my son to a medical system that failed him, Sarah said softly. I couldn't save Daniel, but I can help save Lily. The simple honesty of her words created a moment of connection that transcended their employer-employee relationship. They were allies now, united against a common enemy by bonds of shared purpose and growing trust. In the quiet darkness of the mansion, as William and Sarah prepared for the confrontation to come, Lily slept peacefully for the first time in months, her small body beginning the slow journey back to health as the poisons gradually left her system. And somewhere beyond the mansion's walls, Dr. Richard Blackwood made his own preparations, unaware that his carefully constructed world of deception was about to crumble. Chapter 6: Threats and Resistance. Dawn broke with steel-grey clouds gathering on the horizon, promising a stormy day ahead. Sarah stood at Lily's bedroom window, watching the ocean churn beyond the cliffs, a fitting backdrop to the tension building within the mansion's walls. Behind her, Lily slept, her rest more natural, after 2 days of gradually reduced medication. Small victories. The door opened as Nurse Collins arrived for her morning shift, medical kit in hand. Her sharp eyes immediately noted the untouched injection vial on the nightstand. You didn't administer her 6 a.m. dose, she said, accusation heavy in her tone. Lily was sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks, Sarah replied evenly. Mr. Carter left instructions not to disturb her rest. Collins' face tightened. These medications must be administered on schedule. Disruptions can compromise the entire treatment protocol. Mr. Carter is aware. He's making some adjustments based on his discussion with Dr. Blackwood yesterday. The lie came easily, necessary protection for their covert reduction of Lily's medication. For 2 days they had been diluting doses, replacing some entirely with saline, all while maintaining the appearance of compliance. Collins checked Lily's vital signs, her movements brusque, her pulses elevated, respiration irregular. She was having a nightmare earlier, Sarah explained. In truth, these were signs of the beginning stages of withdrawal from the powerful drugs. Expected and carefully monitored according to the medical guidance William had secretly obtained from his researcher friend. I'll need to report this to Dr. Blackwood. He's arriving at 11 to begin preparations for tomorrow's procedure. Collins made a notation in her records. Mr. Carter has approved the coma protocol, I understand. So I've heard, Sarah said neutrally. After Collins left, Sarah texted William, Collins suspicious. Noticed missed dose. His reply came seconds later, anticipated. Maintain course. Meeting Blackwood at 11, stay with Lily. Sarah tucked her phone away as Lily stirred, her eyes fluttering open. For the first time in weeks they were clear, confused but present. Sarah? The child's voice was raspy from disuse. I had strange dreams. Sarah sat beside her, heart lifting at this sign of improvement. What kind of dreams, sweetheart? About Mommy. She was trying to tell me something important. Lily frowned with the effort of remembering. Something about birds and secrets. Sarah kept her expression neutral despite her inner excitement. Dreams can be like that sometimes, mysterious. I'm hungry, Lily said, surprising them both. Really hungry. That's wonderful news. What would you like for breakfast? Pancakes, with extra syrup. Sarah smiled. Coming right up. In the kitchen, she prepared the requested breakfast with movements made efficient by joy. Lily's improved lucidity after just 2 days of reduced medication confirmed their suspicions. The cancer symptoms were drug-induced, not evidence of actual disease. As she arranged the breakfast tray, Sarah overheard voices from William's study, Collins reporting the missed dose, her tone urgent and concerned. William's responses were measured, reasonable, betraying none of their secret intervention. Sarah returned to find Lily sitting up in bed, looking through one of her sketchbooks. "These drawings are so sad," the child observed, touching a dark landscape with a frown. "Did I make these?" "You did, when you weren't feeling well." Lily turned to a blank page. "I want to draw something happy today." Sarah set down the breakfast tray. "That sounds perfect." As Lily ate with surprising appetite, Sarah discreetly examined the child for other signs of improvement. Her color was better, eyes more focused, movements more coordinated. Small but significant changes. A knock at the door announced William, his face composed into a mask of calm despite the storm Sarah knew was raging within him. "Good morning, Princess," he said, his voice softening as it always did for his daughter. "You look brighter today." "I feel better, Daddy. Sarah's letting me draw happy pictures." William met Sarah's gaze over Lily's head, relief and determination passing silently between them. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I have a meeting soon, but I'll come back after to see your artwork." In the hallway, he whispered, "Blackwood's bringing a full medical team today to prepare for tomorrow's procedure. I've agreed to everything while our security team works in the background." Security team? Sarah hadn't been aware of this development. "Former colleagues from my cybersecurity firm, they're tracking Blackwood's communications, financial records, everything. By tomorrow, we'll have a complete picture." William glanced at his watch. "I need to prepare for the meeting. Keep recording everything." The silver brooch pinned to Sarah's uniform, the recording device William had given her, felt suddenly heavier with responsibility. At precisely 11, Blackwood arrived with an entourage, 2 assistants carrying medical equipment, and a severe-looking woman introduced as Dr. Helen Mercer, an anesthesiology specialist. They were escorted to William's study for what was described as a preparatory consultation. Sarah remained with Lily, who was showing remarkable improvement, chatting and drawing with enthusiasm that had been absent for months. Through the floor vent, Sarah could hear fragments of the conversation below, Blackwood's confident explanations of the coma procedure, William's careful questions, the occasional technical input from Dr. Mercer. "The protocol requires complete neurological suppression for a minimum of 14 days, Blackwood was saying. "During this period, the aggressive compounds can be administered without the cognitive side effects Miss Carter has been experiencing." "And the risks?" William's voice carried clearly. "Minimal compared to the alternative. Without this intervention, the disease will progress rapidly." "I'd like to see the most recent test results confirming this progression," William requested. "So the actual lab reports, not just your summary." A brief silence followed. "Of course. I'll have my office send them immediately." Blackwood's tone remained smooth, but Sarah detected a new tension. "Now, we should discuss the practical arrangements. The procedure will begin at 8 a.m. tomorrow. My team will arrive at 7 to prepare." The meeting continued for another hour, William extracting detailed information about the procedure, the medications, the monitoring systems, every question forcing Blackwood to commit to specifics that could later be disproven. After they departed with promises to return the next morning, William joined Sarah and Lily, his face betraying nothing of the turmoil beneath. "Look, Daddy." Lily held up a colorful drawing of a garden. "I drew our backyard with all the flowers Mommy used to plant." William's carefully maintained composure wavered. He sat beside his daughter, examining the picture with suspiciously bright eyes. "It's beautiful, Princess. Your mother would love it." "I remember more things today," Lily confided. "Sarah says it's because I'm getting better." William shot Sarah a warning glance. They'd agreed not to discuss the medication reduction with Lily yet. "You certainly seem more like yourself." "Can we go outside soon?" "Just to the garden?" Lily asked hopefully. "I miss the flowers." "Soon," William promised. "Very soon." Later, in the privacy of William's study, they reviewed the recording from Sarah's brooch. "He's desperate to proceed with this coma protocol," Sarah observed. "Did you notice how he deflected when you asked for original lab results?" William nodded grimly. "Because they don't exist. There is no disease progression, because there's no disease. What happens when he arrives tomorrow expecting to put Lily into a coma? He won't get the chance." William pulled out a folder. "My security team has assembled preliminary evidence. Financial transactions between Blackwood's Research Foundation and pharmaceutical companies, developing the very compounds he's testing on his patients. Patent applications filed secretly under shell companies. And most damning, data from previous patients showing the progression of symptoms identical to Lily's. Sarah leafed through the documents. This is compelling, but is it enough for authorities to act? We're getting there. By morning, we'll have the complete analysis of Lily's medications from the lab, plus full background on every compound found in Catherine's system. William's face hardened. What we don't have yet is direct evidence linking Blackwood to Catherine's accident. Could the police reopen the investigation based on what we've found? And possibly. But I want irrefutable proof before involving them. Blackwood has powerful connections, influential supporters. We need to build an airtight case. Sarah nodded her understanding. What's our plan for tomorrow? I've arranged for a specialist to examine Lily first thing, Dr. Eleanor Winters from Boston Children's Hospital. The doctor who originally questioned Blackwood's diagnosis? Yes, she'll provide an independent assessment of Lily's condition. Meanwhile, my security team will be here, disguised as household staff. When Blackwood arrives, a sharp knock interrupted them. Collins stood in the doorway, her face professionally blank. Excuse me, Mr. Carter. There's been a development with Lily's condition. Her afternoon blood work shows concerning changes. William tensed. What kind of changes? Decreasing levels of the therapeutic compounds in her system. Almost as if... Collins paused meaningfully. The medications aren't being administered properly. I've been personally overseeing her medication schedule, William lied smoothly. Perhaps the dosage adjustments Dr. Blackwood recommended are affecting the absorption rates. Collins's smile didn't reach her eyes. Perhaps. Dr. Blackwood would like to speak with you. He's on the line in the medical room. After William left, Sarah returned to Lily's room, unease prickling along her spine. The child was napping peacefully, her breathing even and natural. Sarah checked the security monitor beside the bed, ensuring it was recording properly. A soft ping from her phone announced a text message from an unknown number. Be careful. You're being watched. Sarah deleted the message immediately, her heart racing. Someone knew what they were doing, someone who wasn't Blackwood or Collins. An ally or another threat. Evening brought a heavy storm, rain lashing against the windows as wind howled around the mansion's eaves. The turbulent weather mirrored the tension building inside as various parties moved pieces on an invisible chessboard. Sarah was helping Lily prepare for bed when William returned, his expression grim. Blackwood is moving up the timeline. He wants to begin the coma protocol tonight, claiming Lily's deteriorating blood work requires immediate intervention. That's absurd, Sarah whispered. She's improving, not deteriorating. He's falsifying results. I stalled him, said I needed to make arrangements, speak with Lily first. William knelt beside his daughter's bed. How are you feeling, Princess? Better, Daddy. My head doesn't hurt anymore, and I remembered all about my birthday party last year. Lily smiled proudly. Sarah said that's a good sign. It's a wonderful sign. William smoothed her hair tenderly. Lily, do you remember Dr. Blackwood? The doctor who's been treating you? Lily's smile disappeared. The tall man with cold hands. He scares me. Why does he scare you, sweetheart? The child fidgeted with her blanket. He tells me I'm very sick, but I only feel really sick after his medicine. And she hesitated, looking between William and Sarah. Sometimes I hear him and Nurse Collins talking when they think I'm asleep. William kept his voice gentle. What do they say? Very complicated things. About subjects and trials and publications. Once Dr. Blackwood said I was responding perfectly to the protocol. It sounded like he was happy. I felt bad. William's jaw tightened, but his expression remained calm for Lily's benefit. Thank you for telling me, Princess. That was very brave. After Lily fell asleep, William and Sarah retreated to the hallway, speaking in hushed tones. We need to accelerate our timeline, William said urgently. Blackwood is panicking. He knows something's wrong with Lily's medication levels. What about Dr. Winter's examination tomorrow? We'll proceed with that, but I'm moving up our other plans too. My security team will be in place by midnight. I've arranged for a medical transport to take Lily to Boston Children's Hospital immediately after Winters confirms our suspicions. Sarah nodded. I'll pack her essentials discreetly. As she turned to leave, William caught her arm. Sarah, if Blackwood suspects what we're doing, he might take desperate measures. I've instructed security to watch the property perimeter, but inside the house it's just us until midnight. I won't leave Lily's side, she promised. The storm intensified as night fell. Sarah sat in Lily's room, listening to the rain hammer against the windows while the child slept peacefully. The house seemed unnaturally quiet otherwise. Collins had left after dinner, claiming a family emergency, and the weekend night nurse had called in sick. Around 10 o'clock, Sarah heard a car on the gravel driveway. She peered through the rain-streaked window, but could see only headlights quickly extinguished. No one was expected at this hour. She texted William, "Unexpected visitor. Car just arrived." His reply was immediate. "Security team not due until midnight. Stay with Lily, door locked. I'll investigate." Sarah locked Lily's bedroom door and positioned herself between the bed and the entrance, every sense alert. Minutes crawled by with no word from William. She tried calling his cell phone, no answer. A soft scratching at the door made her freeze. Not knocking, but the subtle sound of someone testing the lock. Sarah held her breath, hoping whoever it was would leave. Instead, she heard the distinctive click of a key in the lock. The door eased open to reveal Collins, rain-drenched and tight-faced. "What are you doing here?" Sarah demanded. "You left hours ago." "Emergency protocol activation," Collins replied mechanically. "Dr. Blackwood has ordered immediate implementation of the coma procedure. Lily's latest results are critical." "Mr. Carter hasn't authorized any procedure tonight," Sarah said firmly, not moving from her protective stance by Lily's bed. "And Lily is sleeping naturally for the first time in weeks. Does that look critical to you?" Collins advanced into the room, medical case in hand. "Step aside, Ms. Mitchell. This isn't a matter for household staff." "Where is Mr. Carter?" "Discussing the situation with Dr. Blackwood downstairs." Collins' voice was flat, rehearsed. "He's authorized emergency measures." Sarah knew immediately she was lying. William would never approve such a procedure, especially not without informing her. "I'll need to confirm that with him directly." "There's no time." Collins opened her case, removing a prepared syringe. "This sedative needs to be administered immediately to stabilize her condition." Sarah stepped forward, blocking her path. "Put that down now." Collins' professional mask slipped, revealing cold determination beneath. "You've been interfering from the beginning, questioning treatments, building inappropriate emotional connections with the patient, manipulating Mr. Carter with your theories." "Not theories, facts. We know what you and Blackwood have been doing to Lily, creating symptoms with your medications, then treating those symptoms with more toxic compounds, using her as a test subject for experimental drugs." Something dangerous flashed in Collins's eyes. "You understand nothing. Dr. Blackwood's work is revolutionizing neurological treatment. The protocols being refined through Lily's case will benefit thousands of patients. You're poisoning a child for research data. We're advancing medical science. Breakthroughs require sacrifice. Not this kind of sacrifice, not without consent." Sarah stood her ground. "And certainly not by manufacturing illness in a healthy child." Collins' laugh was brittle. "Healthy, you fool. Lily was never healthy. Her genetic profile is exceptional, rare markers that make her response to the compounds uniquely valuable. Just like her mother's." The casual confirmation of their worst suspicions sent ice through Sarah's veins. "So you did target Catherine deliberately." Catherine was a regrettable complication. She discovered records she wasn't meant to see. Became difficult. Collins tightened her grip on the syringe. "Now step aside." "No." Sarah reached behind her for the emergency call button installed beside Lily's bed. Collins lunged forward with surprising speed. The syringe narrowly missed Sarah's arm as she twisted away. They grappled silently, both aware that waking Lily would complicate the situation. Sarah managed to knock the syringe from Collins' hand, sending it skittering across the floor. Collins' training gave her an advantage, but Sarah fought with the ferocity of maternal protection. They crashed against the dresser, sending medical supplies tumbling. The commotion woke Lily, who screamed at the sight of the struggle. "Daddy, Sarah!" Collins broke free and scrambled for the syringe. Sarah tackled her, both women falling heavily to the floor. In the chaos, Sarah's hand closed around a heavy medical text on the fallen bedside table. She swung it desperately, connecting with Collins' temple. The nurse crumpled, momentarily stunned. Sarah seized the opportunity to grab Lily from the bed, wrapping her in a blanket. "We need to find your father," she said urgently, helping the terrified child to her feet. They hurried into the hallway, Sarah supporting Lily's weight, as the girl struggled to walk after weeks of enforced bed rest. Behind them, Collins was regaining consciousness, calling someone on her phone with slurred urgency. The mansion's layout worked against them, winding hallways and multiple staircases creating a labyrinth in the dark. Sarah guided them toward William's study, hoping to find him or at least a phone to call for help. The study was empty, papers scattered across the desk as if William had left in a hurry. Sarah locked the door behind them, then tried William's cell phone again. Still no answer. "Where's Daddy?" Lily whimpered, clinging to Sarah. "We'll find him, sweetheart. Don't worry." Sarah projected a confidence she didn't feel. She tried the landline on William's desk. Dead. A heavy pounding on the study door made them both jump. "Here's Mitchell," Dr. Blackwood's voice calm yet menacing. "This is unnecessary drama. Open the door so we can discuss the situation rationally." Sarah remained silent, frantically searching the desk for anything useful. A weapon, a working phone, emergency contacts. "Mr. Carter is fine," Blackwood continued. "He's simply been given a mild sedative to help him calm down." His emotional state was compromising Lily's treatment plan. The door handle rattled violently. "This is my final request, Ms. Mitchell. Open the door or I'll be forced to take more decisive action." Sarah found what she was looking for, William's private security panel hidden in a desk drawer. She quickly entered the emergency code he had shared with her. "Silent alarm activated," confirmed the small screen. "Response time 4 minutes. Just 4 minutes to hold off Blackwood and Collins." Sarah positioned Lily behind the massive desk, then scanned the room for defensive options. The antique letter opener on the desk. A heavy crystal paperweight. The fire poker by the hearth. Not much against determined adversaries, but better than nothing. The pounding stopped. Ominous silence followed, then the soft scrape of a key in the lock. Sarah grabbed the fire poker and stood ready. The door swung open to reveal Blackwood, Collins beside him with a visible bruise forming on her temple. Behind them stood 2 men in paramedic uniforms, the medical team Blackwood had brought. "This has gone far enough," Blackwood said, his cultured voice incongruous with the violence in his eyes. "Lily needs immediate medical intervention. The interruption to her medication schedule has created a dangerous situation." "The only danger to Lily is you," Sarah countered, maintaining her defensive stance. "We know everything. The false diagnosis, the experimental drugs, what you did to Catherine when she discovered your research." Blackwood's expression didn't change, but something cold and calculating entered his gaze. "I see William has been sharing his paranoid theories. A shame. Grief can distort perception so severely. Where is he?" "Resting comfortably. He became quite agitated earlier, hyperventilating, making accusations. We administered a mild sedative for his own safety." "You drugged him," Sarah translated, fury building. "Just like you've been drugging Lily for months." One of the paramedics stepped forward. "Doctor, we're on a timeline here." Blackwood nodded. "Indeed. Ms. Mitchell, I understand your attachment to the Carter family. It's admirable if misplaced. But Lily's medical needs take precedence over emotional considerations." "Her medical needs?" Sarah's laugh was harsh. "You mean your research needs? Your publications? Your patents on these experimental compounds you're testing on children without informed consent?" Something dangerous flashed across Blackwood's face, the mask of professional concern slipping to reveal cold calculation beneath. "You have no idea what you're interfering with. The protocols we're developing will revolutionize neurological treatment. The data from Lily's case alone has advanced our understanding exponentially. You're creating symptoms to treat them, making her sick so you can claim to cure her." A simplistic interpretation, Blackwood signaled to the paramedics who began moving into the room. "Neurological research requires controlled conditions, specific symptom presentations. We're merely optimizing the research environment." Sarah tightened her grip on the poker. "By poisoning a child, by advancing medical science, breakthroughs require sacrifice." The same phrase Collins had used. The casual cruelty of it made Sarah's blood boil. "Not this kind of sacrifice. And certainly not without consent." Blackwood sighed, as if disappointed by a student's poor performance. "Consent is an ethical nicety, not a scientific necessity." William gave us legal authorization to treat his daughter. The specific methodologies are at our discretion. One of the paramedics lunged suddenly, trying to grab the poker. Sarah swung defensively, connecting with his arm. He howled in pain and stumbled back. Collins circled to the right, trying to reach Lily behind the desk. Sarah pivoted to block her, momentarily exposing her back to the second paramedic. He seized the opportunity, grabbing her from behind. Sarah fought desperately, but the man's strength overwhelmed her. The poker was wrenched from her grasp as the first paramedic recovered and moved to help restrain her. "Enough," Blackwood snapped. "Secure Miss Mitchell and retrieve the child. We have a protocol to implement." As the paramedics wrestled Sarah toward the door, Collins approached Lily, who had retreated to the corner, eyes wide with terror. "It's all right." "Lily," the nurse said soothingly, professional mask back in place. "We're going to help you feel better." "No," Lily screamed, backing further away. "You'll make me feel worse. Your medicine makes the monsters come." Collins reached for her. "That's just confusion from the illness, sweetheart. Get away from her," Sarah shouted, still struggling against her captors. "Lily, run!" But there was nowhere to run. The child was cornered, trembling with fear as Collins approached with a prepared syringe. The study windows suddenly exploded inward, showering the room with glass. Black-clad figures swarmed through the openings, William's security team arriving at last. In the ensuing chaos, Sarah broke free from her distracted captors. She launched herself at Collins, tackling the nurse before she could reach Lily. The syringe went flying, its contents spilling harmlessly on the carpet. Blackwood backed toward the door as security personnel subdued the false paramedics. His composure finally cracked, panic replacing clinical detachment. "This is a misunderstanding," he insisted, voice rising. "I'm Lily's physician. These people are interfering with critical medical care." A familiar figure appeared in the doorway behind him. William Carter, disheveled but very much awake, a dangerous fury in his eyes and a security team member at his side. "The only critical situation here," William said coldly, "is yours, Richard." Blackwood spun to face him, his shock evident. "William, you should be unconscious. Sorry to disappoint. Your nurse overestimated the dosage needed for a man my size." William stepped into the room. "Or perhaps I've built up a tolerance after months of drinking coffee from cups you've handled during our meetings." Understanding dawned on Blackwood's face. "You know everything." William's voice was deadly quiet. "About the false diagnosis, the experimental drugs, what you did to Catherine when she discovered your research. William, be reasonable. The work we're doing is revolutionary. Lily's unique neurological profile makes her an ideal subject for—" "Subject?" William advanced on him, rage barely contained. "My daughter is not a laboratory rat." Security personnel moved to restrain Blackwood, who suddenly produced a small syringe from his pocket. "Stay back. This contains enough compound JX9 to cause immediate neurological collapse." Everyone froze. Sarah edged closer to Lily, shielding the child with her body. "Richard, don't be foolish," William said carefully. "You're surrounded. There's no escape." Blackwood's laugh was unhinged. "Escape? You think that's my concern now?" "My research is backed by people you can't begin to touch, William. People who understand that progress requires sacrifice." "Not my daughter's sacrifice," William took another step forward. "It's over, Richard. Nothing is over. My work continues with or without Lily." Blackwood's eyes darted around the room, landing on Sarah and the child behind her. "Though I'd prefer with. The data series is most valuable when complete." He lunged suddenly, not toward the door but toward Lily. Sarah threw herself into his path, colliding with his outstretched arm. The syringe meant for Lily plunged into Sarah's shoulder instead. William roared with fury as security tackled Blackwood to the ground. Sarah collapsed, the powerful compound already taking effect. Her vision tunneled, limbs growing leaden. The last thing she saw was William's face above her, his voice distant as he shouted for an ambulance. Lily's small hands clutching hers. Then darkness claimed her, and Sarah knew nothing more. Chapter 7. The Trial. Beeping monitors and antiseptic scents welcomed Sarah back to consciousness. She drifted through layers of awareness, fragments of memory assembling like puzzle pieces. The confrontation, Blackwood's desperate lunge, the sting of the needle. Most vividly, she remembered Lily's terrified face as Sarah collapsed. "She's waking up," a distant voice announced. Sarah forced her heavy eyelids open. William sat beside her hospital bed, haggard but alert. Behind him stood a stern-faced woman in a business suit and a uniformed police officer. "Lily?" Sarah managed, her voice a raspy whisper. "She's safe," William assured her, gently squeezing her hand. "At Boston Children's Hospital under Dr. Winter's care. She's improving daily." Relief flooded through Sarah. "Blackwood?" "In custody, along with Collins and their associates." William's expression darkened. "The charges are substantial. Medical fraud, assault, illegal drug trials, falsifying medical records, and—" He hesitated. "Investigation into Catherine's accident has been reopened." The business-suited woman stepped forward. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm District Attorney Claire Harrington. When you're feeling stronger, we'd like to take your statement regarding Dr. Blackwood's actions." Sarah struggled to focus through the lingering effects of whatever compound had been in that syringe. "How long have I been here?" "3 days," William answered. "The doctors weren't sure what Blackwood injected you with. It took time to synthesize a counter-agent. It was a high dose of his experimental neurological suppressant," D.A. Harrington explained. "The same compound found in several of his other victims. You're lucky to be alive." Sarah attempted to sit up, wincing as pain shot through her body. "What happens now?" "A long recovery for you," William said firmly. "And a thorough investigation into Blackwood's activities. My security team found extensive records in his private office, evidence of similar treatments with other patients." D.A. Harrington nodded grimly. "We've identified 7 families so far whose children received identical diagnoses and experimental treatments. Most experienced severe neurological effects. 2 didn't survive the coma protocol Blackwood was pushing for Lily." The horror of it settled heavily on Sarah's chest. "He called them sacrifices for progress. A defense he's still attempting," the DA replied with evident disgust. "Claims his research would have revolutionized neurological treatment, justifying the necessary trials on his subjects." "When can I see Lily?" Sarah asked, focusing on what mattered most. William smiled slightly. "She's been asking for you non-stop. As soon as the doctors clear you for visitors, I'll bring her." 2 weeks later, Sarah was released from the hospital. Her recovery had been complicated by the unknown compound's lingering effects: tremors in her hands, occasional memory lapses, headaches that came without warning. The doctors were optimistic these symptoms would fade with time, but uncertainty remained. William had arranged for her to stay at a guest cottage on the Carter estate, rather than return to her small apartment. "For your recovery," he insisted, though they both knew it was equally for Lily's benefit. The child had formed an unbreakable attachment to Sarah during their shared ordeal. Their reunion at the cottage was tearful. Lily rushed into Sarah's arms the moment she arrived, clinging as if afraid Sarah might disappear. "You saved me," the child whispered against her shoulder. "You fought the monsters." "We saved each other," Sarah corrected gently, holding Lily close despite the pain that still radiated through her body. The weeks that followed established a new normal for the unlikely family unit. Lily's health improved rapidly once freed from Blackwood's toxic treatments. Her natural resilience asserted itself as she regained weight, strength, and the joyful spirit that had been suppressed for so long. William divided his time between rebuilding his business connections, cooperating with the ongoing investigation, and creating a stable home environment for his daughter. The grief that had made him vulnerable to Blackwood's manipulation remained, but it no longer consumed him. In its place grew a fierce determination to protect Lily and seek justice for Catherine. Sarah's role evolved beyond traditional household staff. As her health improved, she became Lily's tutor, preparing the child to eventually return to school. More significantly, she provided the maternal presence Lily desperately needed: gentle guidance, emotional support, and unconditional love. The case against Dr. Richard Blackwood and his associates moved forward with methodical precision. D.A. Harrington proved to be a relentless prosecutor, building a comprehensive case that expanded well beyond the Carter family. "The preliminary hearing is scheduled for next month," William explained one evening as he and Sarah reviewed legal documents in his study. "The evidence is overwhelming. But Blackwood's legal team is attempting to suppress key portions. What about Catherine's case? Sarah asked carefully, aware of the pain this aspect caused William. His expression tightened. The medical examiner is reviewing her autopsy findings with the new evidence in mind. Preliminary toxicology reanalysis shows the compound in her system was almost certainly administered deliberately. He set down his pen, struggling with emotion. She was trying to protect Lily. She discovered what Blackwood was planning and became a threat. Sarah placed her hand over his. She would be proud of how you've protected Lily now. Their eyes met. A moment of connection that acknowledged the bond forming between them, forged in crisis but growing into something deeper through shared purpose and healing. The moment was interrupted by Lily's appearance in the doorway, pajama-clad and sleepy-eyed. "I had the dream again," she murmured. William opened his arms and she climbed into his lap, a recently re-established ritual that healed them both. "The bird dream?" Lily nodded against his chest. "Mommy was showing me how to draw birds. She said they're symbols of freedom." Sarah smiled gently. "Your mother was very wise. She said to remember that even in cages, birds don't forget how to fly." Lily looked up at her father. "I think she was trying to help us." William pressed a kiss to her forehead, eyes suspiciously bright. "I think she was, Princess." And she did. As winter yielded to spring, legal proceedings intensified. The district attorney's office, bolstered by evidence from multiple families, brought a 47-count indictment against Blackwood, Collins, and 3 associates. Charges ranged from medical fraud and unauthorized drug trials to assault and involuntary manslaughter. The investigation into Catherine's accident progressed more slowly, complicated by the passage of time and the subtle nature of the crime. But William refused to let it fade into the background, hiring private forensic experts to re-examine every detail. "They'll find the truth," Sarah assured him during their evening walks along the cliffside path, a ritual they'd developed during her recovery. "Catherine deserves justice just as much as Lily." "I failed her," William admitted, watching the sunset paint the Atlantic in fiery hues. "I was so blinded by grief that I handed our daughter to the very man who had taken her from us." You can't blame yourself for trusting a doctor with impeccable credentials. Blackwood built his entire career on manipulating vulnerable families. William's hand found hers, a gesture that had become natural between them. "You saw what I couldn't or wouldn't. Without you, Lily would have—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah squeezed his hand. "But she didn't. She's safe, she's healing, and she has her father back." The pre-trial hearings revealed the full scope of Blackwood's operation. For over a decade, he had targeted families with children possessing specific genetic markers, traits that made them ideal test subjects for his experimental neurological compounds. Using his prestigious position and charitable foundation as cover, he had created a pipeline of unwitting research subjects. Most disturbing were the financial connections, uncovered between Blackwood's research and several pharmaceutical companies developing drugs based on his findings. The money trail led to offshore accounts, shadow corporations, and influential backers who had protected him from previous ethical inquiries. As the court date approached, pressure mounted from unexpected directions. William received anonymous threats, subtle warnings about consequences should the case proceed. Sarah found a note on her car windshield. Some questions should remain unasked. The district attorney's office faced its own challenges. Key evidence mysteriously disappeared from secure storage. A crucial witness, a former lab technician from Blackwood's research facility, withdrew his testimony after his family was involved in a suspicious car accident. "They're trying to intimidate us," William observed during an emergency meeting with D.A. Harrington in his study. "Blackwood's backers have significant resources and significant motivation to keep his methods quiet," Harrington agreed, reviewing the latest security reports. "The patents derived from his research are potentially worth billions. Several drugs based on his compounds are in late-stage clinical trials." "Can we still proceed with the case?" Sarah asked, concern evident. Harrington's expression was grim but determined. "We'll proceed, but I won't lie to you. These setbacks have weakened our position. The judge is already considering a motion to dismiss several counts due to insufficient evidence." "What about the testimony from the other families?" William pressed. "Surely their experiences, are being systematically discredited. Blackwood's defense team is painting them as desperate parents who misunderstood legitimate experimental treatments that they legally consented to. Harrington sighed heavily. Without the lab tech's testimony connecting the treatments to deliberate symptom induction, it's becoming a case of medical interpretation rather than fraud. The implications settled heavily in the room. Months of building a case, gathering evidence, working toward justice, all potentially unraveling because of powerful interests protecting their investments. "What about Lily's testimony?" Sarah suggested quietly. "She remembers much more now. She could describe how she felt before and after the treatments began." William immediately shook his head. "Absolutely not. She's been through enough trauma." "I understand your reluctance," Harrington said carefully, "but a first-hand account from Lily could be compelling, particularly given how articulate she's becoming about her experiences." "She's 8 years old," William protested. "I won't put her through cross-examination by Blackwood's attorneys." The debate continued without resolution. Later that evening, Sarah found William in Catherine's studio, staring at the Blue Lady painting that had led them to the hidden evidence months before. "I'm sorry about suggesting Lily testify," she said softly. "I shouldn't have brought it up in front of the DA." William turned, his expression troubled rather than angry. "You were thinking about justice. I can't fault you for that. Justice isn't worth causing Lily more pain. That's just it." William gestured to Catherine's paintings surrounding them. Catherine believed that truth was worth fighting for, even at great personal cost. She died trying to expose Blackwood's crimes. Now we might fail to bring him to justice because we lack a compelling witness. Sarah approached, standing beside him before the haunting portrait. "What are you saying?" "I don't know," he rubbed his face wearily. "Part of me thinks Catherine would want Lily to speak her truth. Another part knows she would protect our daughter from further trauma at any cost." "Perhaps there's a middle path," Sarah suggested. "Something less confrontational than direct testimony, but still allowing Lily's experience to be heard." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. The case, the threats, William's dilemma, everything churned in her mind. Around midnight, a soft knock at her cottage door startled her. Lily stood on the threshold in flower-patterned pajamas, clutching her sketchbook. "I had another dream about Mommy," she announced without preamble. Sarah welcomed her inside, settling them both on the couch with a blanket. "Do you want to tell me about it?" "Mommy said I need to help. That the bad doctor might hurt other kids if someone doesn't stop him." Lily opened her sketchbook to a new drawing, a courtroom scene rendered with surprising detail for a child her age. "I drew this after I woke up." Sarah studied the image, recognizing Blackwood at the defendant's table, William and herself in the gallery, and a small figure approaching the judge's bench. "Is that you in the courtroom?" she asked gently. Lily nodded. "I'm giving the judge a picture. Mommy said sometimes pictures tell stories better than words." The next morning, Sarah shared Lily's dream with William. His initial resistance softened as he examined the drawing, recognizing his daughter's determination reflected in the careful lines. "She's more like her mother than I realized," he said quietly. Catherine always believed art could communicate truth when words failed. Together, they approached Lily about her wishes. The child was surprisingly clear about her desire to help stop the bad doctor from hurting other children. After careful consultation with child psychologists and the district attorney, a plan emerged that would allow Lily's experience to be shared while minimizing her trauma. The trial began on a rain-soaked Monday in early June. The courthouse steps were crowded with media, drawn by the sensational nature of the case and the prominence of the Carter family. Inside, the wood-paneled courtroom hummed with tension as jury selection proceeded. William, Sarah, and Lily waited in a private room, shielded from the circus atmosphere. Lily sat between them, solemnly coloring in her sketchbook, while the adults reviewed last-minute details with the prosecution team. "Remember, you don't have to do this," William told his daughter, brushing back a strand of her now shoulder-length blonde hair. "We can leave any time you want." Lily looked up with eyes too old for her years. "I want to help the other kids, Daddy, like Mommy tried to do." The first week of trial unfolded with opening statements and technical testimony. Medical experts debated the legitimacy of Blackwood's treatments, while financial investigators detailed the complex money trail behind his research empire. Former patients and their families recounted experiences eerily similar to Lily's: mysterious symptoms, aggressive experimental treatments, cognitive decline followed by miraculous recovery once the treatment stopped. Blackwood maintained an air of professional indignation throughout, whispering constantly to his high-priced defense team. His attorneys portrayed him as a visionary researcher, whose unconventional methods were misunderstood by medical traditionalists. They hammered at consent forms signed by desperate parents, arguing that all risks had been legally disclosed, if not fully comprehended. By the second week, the prosecution's case began showing cracks. Key evidence was ruled inadmissible on technical grounds. Expert witnesses were skillfully discredited during cross-examination. The narrative of deliberate harm became increasingly difficult to maintain against the defense's portrayal of well-intentioned medical innovation. "They're winning," William whispered to Sarah during a lunch recess. "The jury's expressions are changing. They're starting to doubt." DA Harrington joined them, her normally confident demeanor strained. "We've lost ground today. The judge is considering a motion to dismiss the most serious charges tomorrow morning." "Then it's time," William said, reaching a decision. "Lily's contribution needs to happen now before the judge rules on the motion." The district attorney nodded grimly. "I'll arrange it for the afternoon session." When court reconvened, an unexpected motion from the prosecution shifted the atmosphere in the courtroom. DA Harrington requested permission to present a special witness statement, not testimony subject to cross-examination, but a victim impact statement the jury could consider. "Your Honor, Lily Carter has prepared a statement regarding her experiences under Dr. Blackwood's care. Given her age and vulnerability, we request accommodation to allow her statement to be presented in a non-traditional format." The defense objected vehemently, sensing a potentially damaging development. Judge Reynolds, a thoughtful woman with grown children of her own, considered carefully before rendering her decision. The court recognizes the special considerations necessary when minor victims are involved. "I'll allow this statement, with the understanding that it is not subject to cross-examination, but will be entered into evidence for the jury's consideration." A murmur ran through the courtroom as Lily entered, holding William's hand on one side and Sarah's on the other. She wore a simple blue dress, her blonde hair pulled back with a ribbon. Though clearly nervous, her steps were steady as she approached the bench. Judge Reynolds smiled kindly. "Hello, Lily. I understand you have something you'd like to share with the court." Lily nodded solemnly. "Yes, Your Honor." Everyone expected her to speak, a prepared statement perhaps, or answers to gentle questions from the prosecutor. Instead, Lily reached into the folder she carried and withdrew a large piece of drawing paper. The courtroom fell silent as she held up her artwork for the judge to see. It was a triptych, 3 connected images telling a story. The first panel showed a happy family, mother, father, and child surrounded by bright colors and sunshine. The second depicted a hospital room, dark and frightening, with shadowy figures looming over a small bed. The third showed the child between 2 protective adults, standing in sunlight again, with the words carefully printed at the bottom, "Now I feel safe." The simple eloquence of the child's perspective, rendered in crayon and colored pencil, silenced the courtroom more effectively than any testimony could have. Judge Reynolds studied the drawing carefully, then passed it to the court officer to share with the jury. "Would you like to tell us about your picture, Lily?" the judge asked gently. Lily pointed to the first panel. "This was before I got sick. We were happy." Her finger moved to the middle section. "This is when the bad medicine made me feel worse instead of better. I was scared all the time and couldn't remember things." Finally, she indicated the third panel. "This is now. I'm not sick anymore since Daddy and Sarah stopped the medicine. I can think clearly and I'm not afraid." As the drawing made its way around the jury box, many members visibly reacted, some blinking back tears, others frowning deeply. When it reached the end, the foreman requested permission for the jury to examine it more closely during deliberations. "Does the defense wish to respond to this statement?" Judge Reynolds asked. Blackwood's lead attorney rose visibly conflicted. Challenging a child victim's sincere expression would damage their case, but allowing it to stand unchallenged was equally problematic. "No questions, Your Honor. We simply note for the record that artistic expressions while moving are not medical evidence." "So noted," the judge replied. "The court thanks you for your bravery, Lily. You may step down." As Lily returned to her supporters, she paused briefly beside the defense table. Looking directly at Blackwood for the first time since the trial began, she said in a clear voice that carried throughout the courtroom, "You said the medicine would fix me, but it was breaking me instead. That was wrong." The simple moral clarity of a child cut through the legal complexities and technical arguments. Blackwood for once had no response. The prosecution rested its case the following day. Defense presentations began but seemed to lose momentum after Lily's impactful statement. Where previously skeptical jurors now appeared engaged and concerned, seemingly reconsidering earlier testimony in light of the child's simple truth. After 8 days of testimony and 2 days of jury deliberation, the verdict was announced, guilty on 39 of 47 counts. The judge's sentence reflected the severity of the crimes, 28 years in federal prison for Blackwood, with lesser but substantial sentences for his associates. As a subdued Blackwood was led from the courtroom, William drew Lily into a protective embrace. "It's over, Princess. You did it." "You and Mommy," Sarah joined their hug, completing the circle of protection around the child who had endured so much yet found the courage to help ensure others wouldn't suffer the same fate. Outside the courthouse, away from the media frenzy, D.A. Harrington approached with unexpected news. The investigation into Catherine's accident has yielded results. New evidence confirms tampering with her vehicle. Specifically, the introduction of a compound designed to induce a stroke-like episode while driving. "We're filing additional charges against Blackwood." William closed his eyes briefly, years of uncertainty finally resolving into painful truth. She didn't just have an accident. No, she was silenced because she discovered his research plans for Lily. Harrington's expression softened. But in the end, she still protected her daughter. Through you, through the evidence she preserved through Sarah. As they prepared to leave, Lily looked up at the courthouse's imposing facade. "Mommy would be happy now, wouldn't she, that we stopped the bad doctor?" "Yes, Princess," William assured her, his voice thick with emotion. "Mommy would be very proud of you, though of all of us." Sarah took Lily's other hand, the three of them forming a united front as they walked away from the courthouse and toward whatever future awaited their unconventional family. Behind them, justice had been served. Ahead lay healing, growth, and the promise of happier days to come. Chapter 8. Renacimento, 10 years later. Golden afternoon light streamed through the high windows of the Landon Gallery in downtown Boston, illuminating the crowd gathered for the opening reception. At 28, Lily Carter had grown into a striking young woman, her once frail childhood frame now strong and confident as she moved among the guests, graciously accepting congratulations on her first major solo exhibition. The show, titled Renascimento, Portuguese for rebirth, featured 23 large-scale paintings chronicling her journey from darkness into light. Critics were already calling it a stunning debut from an artist with uncommon emotional depth, and a visual memoir that transforms personal trauma into universal hope. Near the entrance, William Carter watched his daughter with undisguised pride. At 52, his hair had silvered elegantly at the temples, and the years had softened the once sharp edges of grief into something gentler. Beside him stood Sarah, her hand comfortably entwined with his, the simple platinum band on her finger catching the light. "She's magnificent," Sarah murmured, squeezing his hand. "Catherine would be so proud." William nodded, emotion momentarily stealing his voice. After 15 years together, 10 as husband and wife, Sarah still knew exactly what he was feeling, especially in moments connected to Catherine's memory. "I still can't believe that frightened little girl became this confident woman," he said finally. "There were days I thought we'd never get here." Sarah's smile held the wisdom of someone who had helped guide that transformation. She had extraordinary strength all along. She just needed safety to find it. Their conversation paused as a distinguished older woman approached, Dr. Eleanor Winters, now the chief of pediatric medicine at Boston Children's Hospital and a longtime ally of the family. "William, Sarah, congratulations on this magnificent event." Dr. Winters embraced them warmly. Lily's work is extraordinary. The series on medical healing particularly moved me. We're using prints in our new pediatric oncology wing, did she tell you? She mentioned it, William said proudly. Your support has meant everything to her. The support goes both ways. The changes your foundation has championed in pediatric medicine, particularly around experimental treatments and informed consent, have transformed the field. Dr. Winters lowered her voice slightly. The oversight committee formed after the Blackwood case has prevented at least 3 similar situations in the past 5 years alone. The Catherine Carter Foundation for Patient Protection had been William's response to the tragedy that nearly claimed both his wife and daughter. Using his business acumen and technological resources, he had created a watchdog organization that monitored experimental medical research, particularly involving children, and provided support for families navigating complex treatment decisions. Across the gallery, Lily was speaking with a group of art students, her animated gestures reflecting her passion for mentorship. Teaching weekend art classes for children recovering from illness had become an integral part of her life, a way of transforming her own experience into healing for others. She's got her first book coming out next month too, Sarah told Dr. Winters proudly. An illustrated guide to art therapy techniques for pediatric patients. Remarkable, Dr. Winters smiled. From patient to healer in her own right. Their conversation was interrupted by the gallery owner tapping a glass for attention. The crowd quieted as Lily took her position at the center of the main exhibition space. Composed and radiant in a simple blue dress reminiscent of her mother's favorite color. Thank you all for coming this evening, she began, her voice clear and confident. Art has always been my sanctuary, my voice when words failed, my connection to truth when reality became distorted. This collection represents a journey that many of you have shared in some way, from illness to health, from fear to courage, from isolation to community. She gestured to the painting behind her, a large canvas depicting a child's hand reaching toward light, filtering through what appeared to be prison bars. But on closer inspection were medical equipment and IV stands. Prismid light represents the moment I began to understand that what was happening to me wasn't healing, but harm. That the treatments meant to cure were actually causing my symptoms. Her gaze found William and Sarah in the crowd. I was fortunate to have champions who believed me, who fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. Lily moved to another painting, this one showing a courtroom scene rendered in soft focus, except for a child's drawing held in small hands, which was depicted with hyper-realistic detail. Evidence commemorates a turning point, not just in my life, but in how we approach medical ethics involving children. When a child says something is wrong, we must listen. When treatment causes more suffering than the disease, we must question. When institutions prioritize research over healing, we must demand accountability. The gallery remained hushed as Lily guided them through several more key pieces, explaining the symbolism and techniques with the expertise of someone who had studied her craft intensively. After graduating from Rhode Island School of Design with honors, she had spent 2 years in Italy, studying classical techniques before developing her distinctive style that blended hyperrealism with the expressionist elements. She concluded before a triptych entitled Family Reconstructed, 3 panels showing the evolution of her family: Catherine, William and young Lily in the first, William, Sarah and adolescent Lily in the second, and the current family including Sarah and William's twin boys, now 8 years old, in the third. Family isn't just who we're born to, but who chooses to love us through our darkest moments, Lily said, her voice softening with emotion. My journey of healing wouldn't have been possible without the unconditional love of my father, who found the courage to question when blind trust would have been easier, and Sarah, who entered our broken home and helped rebuild it into something beautiful. She raised her glass. To love that heals, truth that liberates, and art that transforms, thank you for sharing this evening with me. Applause filled the gallery as Lily rejoined her family. William embraced his daughter tightly beyond words. Sarah wiped away tears before taking her turn. Your mother would be so proud, Sarah whispered. She is so proud wherever she is. Lily squeezed her hand. I know. I feel her in every brushstroke. The twins, Alexander and James, had been patiently waiting their turn, restrained by the formal setting but barely containing their energy. As soon as the adults released Lily, they launched themselves at their big sister. "Did you really paint all these?" Alexander asked, eyes wide as he looked around the gallery. "Even the super big ones," Lily laughed, kneeling to their level. "Every single one. Even the super big ones." "Can you teach us how?" James asked hopefully. "For our art project at school?" "Absolutely. We'll have a special lesson this weekend just for you two." As the reception continued, various guests approached to congratulate the family and discuss purchase options with the gallery owner. Several collectors expressed interest in commissioning new works, while a museum curator inquired about including pieces in an upcoming exhibition on art and healing. Later, as the crowd thinned, an elderly man with a cane made his way slowly toward Lily. She didn't recognize him at first. His face was lined with age, his once upright posture now stooped. But when he spoke, memory clicked into place. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice quavering slightly. "Harold Jenkins. I don't know if you remember me." Lily's eyes widened in recognition. "Mr. Jenkins, the nurse who helped us." During the investigation and trial, Jenkins had eventually come forward with crucial evidence, nursing logs and medication records he had secretly preserved from his time working at Blackwood's clinic. "I wasn't sure if I should come," Jenkins admitted. "Those were difficult times to remember." Lily touched his arm gently. "I'm so glad you did. Your courage made a difference, not just for me, but for many children." The old man's eyes moistened. "I regret not speaking up sooner. I saw things, questioned them internally, but fear is a powerful silencer. But not permanently," Lily said softly. "You found your voice when it mattered most." She led him to a smaller painting tucked in an alcove, a nurse's hands preparing medication, rendered in meticulous detail, with a beam of light illuminating the scene. The title card read simply, "Conscience. This one honors you and others who eventually chose truth over security." Jenkins studied the painting with visible emotion. "You've transformed something ugly into something beautiful. That's a rare gift, Miss Carter." As the evening concluded, the family gathered at their favorite restaurant near the waterfront to celebrate. The twins, allowed to stay up well past their usual bedtime for the special occasion, were fading fast, despite their protests to the contrary. "I have some news," Lily announced once dessert had been served. "I've been invited to create a permanent installation for the new wing at Mass General, a series on healing and patient advocacy." "Lily, that's wonderful," Sarah exclaimed. "There's more," Lily continued, suddenly looking nervous. "The commission is significant enough that I'll need a proper studio space. I've been looking at properties and found a perfect converted warehouse in Cambridge." She hesitated. "It has living quarters above the workspace. I think it's time I had my own place." William's face registered surprise, followed by a bittersweet smile. Despite Lily's successful career and independent nature, she had continued to live in the guest cottage on the family estate, finding comfort in proximity to her support system while establishing her artistic identity. "The birds don't forget how to fly," he said softly, echoing Catherine's words from so long ago. Even after years in a safe nest, Lily reached across the table to squeeze his hand. "It's because the nest was safe that I can fly now." Later that night, after the twins were tucked into bed, William and Sarah walked along the moonlit path that wound through their coastal property. The same path where years earlier they had strategized how to protect Lily, where they had first acknowledged their growing feelings for each other, where William had eventually proposed. "Another milestone," Sarah mused. Lily moving out on her own. William nodded, his arm around her waist. "Part of me still sees that fragile 7-year-old whenever I look at her. Hard to reconcile that with the accomplished woman who commanded that gallery tonight." "That's the miracle of healing," Sarah said. "It doesn't erase what happened, but it transforms how we carry it." They paused at the cliff's edge, looking out over the Atlantic. Below, waves crashed against the rocks in eternal rhythm. Above, stars pierced the darkness with unwavering light. "I've been thinking about Catherine a lot today," William admitted. "Wondering if we've honored her properly. If she would approve of the life we've built." Sarah leaned into his embrace. She wanted Lily to be safe, healthy, and loved. She wanted you to find happiness again. I'd say we've fulfilled her deepest wishes. Because of you. William turned to face her fully, framing her face with gentle hands. "You came into our broken home and showed us how to be whole again. Different but whole. We healed each other." Sarah corrected softly. All of us. In the guest cottage, Lily put the final touches on a small canvas, a gift for her parents' upcoming anniversary. Unlike her large gallery pieces, this was intimate, personal, a family portrait incorporating elements from photographs across the years, with Catherine's presence represented by a soft light surrounding them all. At the bottom, she had carefully inscribed words from a letter she'd found in her mother's studio years ago, written but never sent to a medical journal that had published one of Blackwood's early papers. True healing requires more than medicine. It demands honesty, compassion, and the courage to question. Our highest calling is not merely to treat symptoms, but to protect the whole person, body, mind, and spirit from harm disguised as help. Lily signed her name with a flourish, then stepped back to consider her work. The journey from that silent, frightened child to the woman she'd become hadn't been easy. There had been setbacks, nightmares that persisted into adolescence, trust issues that complicated friendships, medical anxiety that still flared occasionally. But there had also been triumphs. Her first art show at 16, featuring drawings that helped other children express their medical experiences. Testimony before a congressional committee on pediatric research ethics. Graduation speeches, awards, and most importantly, the quiet joy of ordinary days lived fully and freely. Through her studio window, Lily could see her parents walking back from the cliffs, arms around each other, their silhouettes outlined by moonlight. The sight filled her with profound gratitude. From devastating loss had come unexpected blessings. From a sterile mansion had emerged a true home. From broken trust had grown a family bound by choice as much as blood. Lily turned back to her easel and picked up her brush again. There was always more beauty to create, more truth to express, more healing to pursue, not just for herself, but for all those still finding their way from darkness into light. The exhibition that began with her childhood trauma concluded with a painting simply titled Forward. In it, a young woman stood at an open window, paintbrush in hand, looking out at a landscape filled with possibilities. Behind her, shadows receded but weren't erased, acknowledged rather than feared, integrated rather than denied. It was, critics noted, the perfect visual representation of resilience, not the absence of wounds, but the presence of both scars and strength, coexisting in a life reclaimed and reimagined. In the quiet of her studio, surrounded by the tools of her chosen art, Lily Carter added one final detail to the anniversary gift, a small bird in flight, barely visible in the painting's upper corner, a silent tribute to her mother's wisdom that had guided them all home. Outside, the wind carried the scent of salt and distant rain across the sleeping landscape. Inside, creativity transformed memory into meaning, pain into purpose, and the long shadow of the past into a future bright with possibility. The cycle of healing, like the tide against the Massachusetts shore, continued its eternal rhythm, washing away what needed to be released, preserving what deserved to remain, and constantly reshaping the landscape of a life fully lived. Femme de Historia. Dear listeners, we hope that Lily, William, and Sarah's powerful journey has touched your hearts. Their story reminds us that healing is possible even after the darkest experiences, and that sometimes our greatest protectors come into our lives in unexpected ways. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing to our channel by clicking the button to your left. Each like and share helps us continue bringing these emotional narratives to life. We've created a special playlist with equally compelling stories about resilience and unconventional families that you can find linked in the description. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below. What moment in the story resonated most with you? Did Sarah's courage inspire you, or perhaps Lily's artistic transformation? Your engagement means the world to us, and we read every comment. Join us tomorrow for another unforgettable journey through the complexities of human experience. Until then, remember that sometimes our greatest strength emerges from our most challenging moments.